After the Justice League repels an invasion from Apocalypse, they force Darkseid to comply with an oath to never return to Earth, to which he responds that he will not. He has no need, since he already has what he came for. Suddenly, Nightwing asks Batman what is going on, when he responds that it seems Cyborg is missing. Black Lightning mentions that they last saw him in Metropolis fighting a swarm of parademons. However, Batman reaffirms that he is not. He is not even present on Earth. Flash immediately asks how he knows that, to which Bruce responds calmly that he has a location monitor running in one of Cyborg's subroutines. He's a walking weapon with Apokoliptian technology running through his body and brain, which we've barely scratched the surface of understanding. It would be irresponsible to allow that kind of unknown power to move freely. Superman's expression sharpens as he hears this and asks directly if Victor knows about it. After an uncomfortable silence, he receives his answer. Leaving aside the morality of this for a moment, adds Wonder Woman, "How do you know Vic isn't on Earth?" Batman frowns as he looks at his tracker and responds that his system has a reach of 2 light years, which means Cyborg isn't in their solar system. Now on Apocalypse, Dceased has Victor's extremities impaled into a table when he asks him if he knows of the anti-life equation, to which he responded no. It is the end of all free will. For the one who controls it, it is the domination of all sentient races, says Dceased. He then moves aggressively close to Victor, adding that Darkseid possesses half of it, but believes the other part will manifest on Earth. And he was, of course, correct. As Victor asks where, Darkseid appears through the shadows holding the mother box, and with a dark tone says, "In you." Victor smiles back, mocking him by the way he appears, like he's trying to make an entrance. However, Darkseid's eyes sharpen, and he tells his servant to remove his tongue. "The mother box will add your half of the equation to his system, Darkseid," mentions Dceased, but there is a problem. Merging the anti-life equation with the digital and the physical without destroying the host is unsound. If he is killed by the process, the equation will cease to exist. Darkseid replies that they will need to control his stone's end. Therefore, he will summon death itself. As he presses the mother box, Black Racer appears furiously but is caught mid-air. Dceased moves in and impales one side of his arm and the other into Victor. However, as Darkseid believes he has managed the situation, he suddenly feels the corruption in his head. Black Racer looks back at him, telling him that it is time to die, when Darkseid turns furiously and takes Death's right side with a single hit. Desperate, Dceased tries to send the equation away, but instead sends Cyborg through a boom tube. As the corruption takes over Apocalypse, Darkseid begins to tear the planet's core apart, eventually unleashing an explosion that destroys his own world. Now, as Cyborg returns to Metropolis, his system is automatically online, and the anti-life equation goes from patient zero to the internet. Victor tries to firewall himself to cut his connection from the world, but it is too late. The equation begins to spread as a techno-organic virus. It attacks through social media, bridging the digital divide into the biological, infecting the minds of all who see it. Meanwhile, Superman is about to receive the help of Mr. Miracle as a way to retrieve Victor from Apocalypse, to which Big Barda also agrees. Suddenly, Superman asks if they can hear the noise, the screaming. As he flies out, he sees the amount of destruction and killing happening and immediately thinks of John and Lois. Now in their apartment, she is looking for his phone. When John adds that Damian should be able to find it, he is nonetheless Batman's son. "You have X-ray vision," replies Damian. That's actually a good point. As John is just meters away from reaching it, the phone is suddenly destroyed by Superman's heat vision. Clark appears through the window, desperate, shouting to them to close their eyes and not look at the screen. Now in the Batcave, Batman is monitoring the situation. He cuts all connections and activates a backup local system to quarantine himself from the virus. He asks the AI to run projections based on the number of phones, tablets, and PCs in use, while also taking time zones into account. The system comes back with approximately 600 million infected worldwide, and at this current rate, the virus will spread to billions within days. Suddenly, Batman realizes that something is off and shouts to the AI to activate the Mana electromagnetic pulse, leaving the mansion in complete darkness. Back at Superman's apartment, Damian is trying to reach his father, mentioning that the radio signal should always be reachable. Don says he shouldn't worry. It seems the virus is spreading through social media, and well, Batman isn't exactly social. As they look outside at the chaos, Superman adds that Bruce will have a contingency plan, and not even the end of the world will stop him from reaching them. Back in Wayne Manor, Batman is calling for everyone when he hears Alfred shouting for him desperately. As he reaches the kitchen, he sees Alfred holding a knife, and right in front of them is none other than Nightwing, covered in blood with a monstrous look. Without hesitation, he lunges. Batman hits him in the head to deflect the attack as he tries to make him snap out of it. However, it is too late. Tim moves in and bites him in his right arm. As Nightwing goes back on the offensive, Batman screams in desperation for Alfred to run. He knows very well he is being overwhelmed, and sure enough, Grayson moves in quickly, biting deep into Bruce's neck. Now, in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, Aquaman is aboard a ship that has been stranded for hours without any personnel around. As he opens one of the doors, he faces the terror of hundreds of infected who lunge at him with rage. Back in Metropolis, Superboy is trying to console Robin by saying that Batman should be okay. Damian tries to keep his cool, saying that he is not worried, but the atmosphere says otherwise. Lois mentions that his parents are fine. They have never been smartphone people and are heading to the bunker, to which Superman adds that he should go to Smallville, but he is worried to leave them here. Now in Gotham, Ivy and Harley are outside one of Joker's hideouts, where they plan to reveal to him that they are now partners. As Harley walks away, Poison Ivy stops her with her vines. After some flirtation between the two, Harley mentions that she should be coming with her, when Ivy kisses her on the cheek, adding that she is strong enough to do this alone, before letting her know she will be waiting at the Botanical Gardens. Minutes later, as she enters the hideout, she sees the Joker sitting all alone and proceeds to tell him that she has been talking to Ivy, but now he doesn't need to worry. This isn't about that sweet, crushing, vine-whispering flower goddess. This is her decision. As she finally says the word she is looking for, the face of a monstrous Joker is revealed. Somewhere else, Ollie and Dinah have convinced Hal to go camping with them. After all, they saved the world from another apocalypse invasion. They have earned a night away from it all. As they joke about his power ring and how Dinah could blow their heads off if she tries to sing, Hal suddenly stands. It seems he is done for the night. Seconds later, they see the reflection of his phone. Ollie, with a sarcastic tone, says, "Well, so much for getting away from it all." Suddenly, a terrifying sound coming from Hal's tent makes them stand still. They try to call for him, but all they can hear is the clenching of teeth. In seconds, a torrent of green energy sends them flying away, and as they try to compose themselves again, all they can see is a corrupted Green Lantern. To make things worse, a message from the power ring is heard. Green Lantern of Sector 2814. Lethal force is not sanctioned. Without hesitation, Hal attacks, hitting Dinah in her lower back. Ollie fires a non-lethal arrow at him, pushing him back. However, as he sees him getting closer to her, desperate, Green Arrow points at him again. "Jordan, I don't know what's going on with you, man, but the next thing coming for your face isn't a punch." Suddenly, Ollie's face drops as he sees the monstrous construct coming his way when Dinah intervenes using her canary cry. This only makes Green Lantern more furious, who is now completely focused on her. Meanwhile, Superman, Lois, Damian, and John finally reach the Daily Planet rooftop. They are planning to use the radio station as a means to advise everyone of what is happening. Clark uses his X-ray vision to scan ahead, but all he sees is the building surrounded by monsters. As Lois asks if they are people they know, Superman's face fills with sadness. Suddenly, something catches Clark's attention. He proceeds to ask John not to let anything go through the door until he gets back. Back on the outskirts of Metropolis, Ollie and Dinah finally manage to stop Hal. As they try to compose themselves after what just happened, a message coming through the ring is heard. Green Lantern of Sector 2814, deceased, scanning for replacement. In a blink of an eye, the ring moves closer to Black Canary. "Replacement found," it says. "Dinah Lance of Earth, you have the ability to overcome great fear. Welcome to the Green Lantern Corps." In seconds, Dinah's new power surges. Ollie can't believe what he is seeing when, with a sad tone, she rejects it. At that same moment, Superman appears and with a serious tone encourages her to accept it. They are going to need it. Minutes later, as they return to the Daily Planet, Damian mentions that they finally made contact with Batman. Ollie tries to ask for answers, mentioning that Hal just turned into a zombie and tried to kill them. "They are not zombies," replies Batman, barely breathing. "They're not consumed by hunger. They're not feeding. They're spreading death, and the trigger is an equation." As Green Arrow tries to joke about it, Batman's tone stops him. "Listen carefully. I am almost almost out of time. Being infected, I've examined my own blood. Right now, I am in one of Mr. Freeze's suits, using the cold to slow down my metabolism, decelerating the spread of the virus within me, but it will soon take over. As the words leave Bruce's mouth, Superman's eyes begin to well up. There's literally no time for sentiment, Clark, continues Batman. It's a technological-biological hybrid. It can be transferred through blood and through digital imagery. Green Arrow chimes in, furious. Come on, it's you. You are Batman. You are not going to be taken out by a virus. You're not just going to get sick and fade away. You're going to sacrifice yourself for the galaxy, outwitting an evil as old as the stars or something. However, Batman's eyes narrow as he knows there is nothing he can do. He then proceeds to call for Damian, who hasn't been able to say a single word. Alfred has something for you, says Bruce while looking at a briefcase. As he lowers his head, he proceeds to mention that there is something he always looked forward for him to earn, but he is sorry he won't be able to see it. Suddenly, the communication is interrupted. Damian tries to call for him, but all that is left is silence. Alfred, who has been present all along, tries to call for him, but in an instant, Batman breaks the containment helmet from the suit and with a rabid look shifts his attention to him. Without hesitation, Alfred ceases the transmission with the rest of the team before pointing the shotgun at Bruce's head. It shouldn't have ended this way. Not for you, he says. Now Alfred finds himself in front of the deceased bodies of the ones he once helped raise as his own. He proceeds to walk to the Batwing, and on his way through Gotham, as he looks down at the infected, with sorrow in his eyes, he lashes a torrent of strikes against them. Meanwhile, Harley is just streets away from that same location, where she sees some survivors still fighting for their lives. As she picks up one of the shotguns, the silhouette of an even crazier Joker is chasing her. In seconds, he lunges at her with rage when Harley Quinn suddenly stops and looks back. You know what? Screw this. No more running, she says while taking a shot directly at him. Seconds later, as the body lies in front of her, she gasps in disbelief, followed by an erratic celebration. Look at you. Years of smiling abuse, instantly reduced to a psychotherapeutic lump. However, as her days with the Joker come to an end, a bigger problem appears in front of her. The birds of prey, now all infected, aim at Harley before lunging at her. Back in Metropolis, Damian sits alone after what happened to Batman. John tries to console him, but he doesn't want to talk about it. As the rest look from afar, Ollie asks Superman if the kid is going to be okay. When Clark, with a serious look, reminds him that Damian is Bruce's son, he will find a way to bury it and keep going. As he says those words, he looks back at Lois and remembers that he must go to Smallville. He scans the Daily Planet one more time before Dinah asks if he needs help. However, Superman's mind seems uneasy. He moves fast, taking all the infected out of the building while leaving those who are not. He opens the door to the editor-in-chief's office, but he suddenly stops. He can see from the silhouette his beloved friend, Perry White. Minutes later, he blocks the entrances and comes back to the rooftop to let everyone know the place is safe. He tries to convince them to come to Smallville with him, but Lois reminds him that there is something she must do. After a promise to come back safe, Superman asks Ollie and Dinah to take care of them before taking flight again. Now in Atlantis, Mera and Tempest are training against the tides when he mentions that for some reason, it seems to be getting darker. Mera replies that it doesn't look like the sun, but something blended with the water. From the distance, Aquaman appears, accompanied by infected sharks, slicing every Atlantean soldier in half. As they realize it is Arthur, Tempest moves in to intervene. Sadly, he comes into contact with the blood and furiously shouts at Mera with his last piece of sense to stay away from it. Now, fully turned, Aquaman, Tempest, and the Atlantean soldiers focus their attack on her. But before they can reach her, Mera uses her hydrokinesis against them, giving her just enough time to escape. Now back in Metropolis, Superman, who was on his way to Smallville, tries to save as many civilians as possible when he encounters Black Lightning fighting a monstrous Clayface. As he helps him defeat him, he proceeds to tell Jefferson to go to the Daily Planet, where more survivors are being brought. He will meet them there once he is done. Minutes later, he finally reaches the Kent farm, where his mom is waiting outside in distress. Clark proceeds to ask for his father, but Martha, with fear in her tone, tells him that she hit him before he fell in the barn. Superman then proceeds inside and walks toward the back barn, where the scratching and clenching can be heard from a distance. As he breaks the lock into pieces to open it, a long-gone Jonathan Kent appears, rabid and frantic. Clark's eyes fill with despair as his once-beloved father tries to grab him. Evading him easily, he grabs the hands of the monstrous creature and peacefully brings him back into the barn before sealing it with his heat vision. Seconds later, as he leaves the barn, Martha asks for his father, but Clark's eyes reveal the answer. He proceeds to lift her before telling her that it is time to go. But as she tries to make sense of the situation, reminding him that this is their home, that they can't just leave. "Your father," she says, but with sadness in his tone, Superman replies, "He isn't here, Mom." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Amanda Waller, accompanied by Captain Atom, is waiting on word from Ray Palmer, who just went into one of the infected bodies as a means to understand the virus itself. "There is a chain of actions," mentions Captain Atom. As per Plague Protocol B, Palmer has shrunk down and is taking a closer look at the virus. However, Amanda Waller hands him a pad that shows satellite imagery of some of the worst affected areas. "Plague Protocol C has been ordered," she replies. "You're up, Captain. I'll direct you through a closed channel. We need you to start excising the infection." Minutes later, as he approaches one of the infected areas, he begins to bring down his atomic fire against all the unliving in the area, but something is wrong. His eyes widen as he calls for Waller, and even more when he realizes what just happened. It seems the Atom, once he came into contact with the infected, was also taken immediately by the anti-life equation. Instead, he returned to Captain Atom's body and began to corrupt all red blood cells, ceasing the heart of a living weapon. Back in Metropolis, Ollie is still working on fixing the communication when Superman appears with Martha. Superboy asks for his grandfather, but as the tears from his grandma begin to fall, he and Lois realize what has just happened. Now, on top of the Daily Planet, Lois tells him that they are ready to broadcast to every radio and television they can reach, before Superman tells her that he can't just stop now. He has to be out there saving people. Suddenly, Ollie and Dinah intervene. They understand that there is nothing they can do to stop him, but the risk is too high. What if he sees a screen on his way out? However, Clark mentions that he won't, because since the outbreak started, he's been using his X-ray vision. "I appreciated your concern," he says, "but I'm needed. We don't have time." Robin chimes in, adding, "Then find more. They should be out there somewhere. One way or another, find them," referring to the Flash. Meanwhile, the broadcast has finally started. "This is Lois Lane from the Daily Planet in Metropolis. I know the world looks like a nightmare. If you can hear me, I know you are scared, but you are not alone. We are regrouping. The Justice League is gathering in Metropolis. Anyone with the power or means to confront this, please come to the Daily Planet if it is safe and you are capable of doing so." Now in Themyscira, after almost being killed by Aquaman, Mira appears asking for Queen Hippolyta's aid, to which she accepts immediately. At the same time, the transmission coming from Metropolis is heard by Wonder Woman, who wastes no time to aid them. Back in the States, Superman and Dinah are flying over Keystone City in search of the Flash. When they find Wallace and Barry inside a bunker, Superman opens the door for them, but Barry tells him that they can't leave. "Batman contacted both of us the second he understood what was happening. We have to hide away from the world. Not very heroic, but for either of us to be infected would spell disaster." Dinah mentions that they can take them to safety, but not before they ask in surprise how she is a Green Lantern and where Hal is. Now in Gotham, Harley Quinn is still battling her old team. She tries to keep them at bay with the shotgun, but not before she runs out of ammo. It seems her time has come to an end when suddenly Poison Ivy appears, grabbing all the infected with her vines and crushing them with force. Back in Metropolis, Lois keeps repeating the same message when Superboy suddenly asks if they can hear something. "Hear what?" asks Damian, looking around, as the rest also try to understand what is happening. In seconds, John's eyes widen as he replies that he can now see her. Now in front of them is Giganta, fully turned, coming their way. They try to hold her, but the attack seems ineffective. Suddenly, the Batwing appears to help them, and for a second, it gives Damian some hope, but not before Giganta, with a single hit, takes one of the wings apart. Robin shouts in desperation when Green Lantern appears and catches it mid-air. Superman moves in and punches her right in the face, making her fall. Out of nowhere, Wonder Woman jumps straight at her for the killing blow. However, Clark stops her mid-attack. "Are you serious? That's an undead giant. I am not giving it time to get back up," shouts Diana. As Superman tries to make her understand that Batman said they were just infected and could probably be saved, the sound of a blast catches them off guard, and as they look back again, fully determined, Cyborg appears. Superman can't believe what he just did, but with a cold tone, Victor replies, "She wasn't alive. None of them are. We need to talk." At the same time, Damian, looking at the Batwing, runs toward it, hoping for Batman to be the one to emerge from it. Sadly, Alfred appears, mentioning that he is sorry. As he gets closer to Robin, he proceeds to open the briefcase Bruce left for him. "He said you were worthy of it," says Alfred, while looking at the Batsuit, "that he was proud of you, and that he should have told you that every day." Damian's composure cracks as he hears those words, before hugging Alfred tightly. Meanwhile, the team gets ready to go out and rescue as many civilians as possible, when Anissa proceeds to give Barry and Wallace a temporary solution that will help them avoid any screen in their path by blurring them. "They'll probably give you a pretty bad headache," mentions Black Lightning, "but that's better than being a zombie." "They are not zombies," replies Cyborg as he looks around. "They're a blight, an extension of the anti-life equation. They want to spread death, nothing more." Suddenly, Ollie warns everyone that something is falling their way, when Diana flies out to catch it. It seems Hawkgirl has been badly hurt, as Wonder Woman asks what happened. Kendra mentions that Captain Atom has been infected and is going to explode. Without wasting any more time, Superman and Wonder Woman fly as fast as possible to the White House and grab Nathaniel, taking him all the way into the sky before he explodes in a radius that hits Washington, Baltimore, and Metropolis in an instant. Now Diana and Clark find themselves surrounded by destruction. Superman's eyes widen at the thought of having lost everything when they both fly toward the Daily Planet. As they approach, hope returns once they see a Green Lantern construct keeping the building safe. Once Superman gets closer, he is grateful to see Lois alive. Suddenly, a voice catches his attention. "Superman!" shouts Lex Luthor, pointing at him. However, Clark's face hardens as he looks back and threatens him if he even tries anything. Lex falls to his knees, mentioning that he is not there to fight, and with sadness in his eyes says, "Look at what happened to our city." Over the next few days, they proceed to take down the internet and every mass digital broadcasting device, while adding 2 new landmasses to Themyscira that will work as a sanctuary for the refugees. At the same time, the Gotham jungle grows exponentially, creating an impenetrable fortress, making it obvious who is sheltered inside. Now in front of the thorn-filled wall, Batman asks to let him do the talking when Ollie mentions, "Are you sure, Damian? You're not exactly the people person." "Ivy's not exactly people," he replies. Suddenly, from the shadows, Killer Croc lunges at them. The team reacts quickly, but not before the vines impale him in place. However, Ollie and Damian are also trapped. As Green Arrow asks Dinah to cut them free, Batman stops them. "Don't do it. Don't harm the plants." From the thorn-filled walls, Poison Ivy and Harley appear. She proceeds to ask why they are here, but more importantly, why a Robin is dressed as a tiny Batman. Damian responds that Bruce is gone, to which Harley and Ivy can't believe it. Finally able to breathe, they proceed to ask them for sanctuary for a group of survivors. Ivy responds that this conversation is something Harley can't stop nagging about, before adding that she would stop as soon as she agrees to be a more benevolent queen. Seconds later, Ivy agrees, but there will be rules. The fruit of the green will be allowed to be eaten as the green wills it, but if any human harms the green, they will be expelled and fed to the monsters. Now at the Fortress of Solitude, heroes and ex-villains work together to come up with solutions. Lex, quite impressed by the way Cyborg operates, asks him why they have never worked together before, when Victor, with sarcasm, replies, "Because you kept trying to kill me and my friends." Ollie proceeds to ask what they are working on, when they respond, "Arcs." "The Arcs will fit 7 million people," adds Lex Luthor. However, Superman intervenes, saying that they are not leaving. Luthor proceeds to mention that after Batman's death, he is the most intelligent person on the planet, and if the human race is to survive, it has to leave Earth. But Superman rages at the idea, shouting that they will not abandon it, they're fighting for it. Martha tries to calm him down, when Lex Luthor crosses the line by saying, "Losing 2 homeworlds in 1 lifetime. How careless." Without hesitation, Lois punches him right in the face. "Fuck you, Luthor. Open your mouth against my husband again and I will smash it closed, understand? We need your mind. We sure as hell don't need you for anything else." Minutes later, as the construction continues, some of the heroes finally take the time to grieve. Suddenly, Firestorm asks everyone present if they can hear something. It first starts like a buzz, but in seconds grows into a scream that is deep in their minds. Out of nowhere, a torrent of energy splits Lex Luthor in 2. Flash looks around, unable to see it, when Manhunter appears and cuts Barry in the back. The rest of the team moves in, trying to contain their old friend, but the attacks seem ineffective. Furious, Firestorm asks everyone to move, and with without hesitation, blasts Manhunter with his flames. However, something worse has just happened. Kid Flash asks where Barry is, when Superman replies that he is running. Wallace moves in, but not before Clark stops him and tells him that he will go. "Do you honestly think you can catch him?" asks Green Arrow. With a straight face, Superman replies, "No." He proceeds to ask Cyborg if what he said before is true. Can he promise that anyone taken by the equation is dead? After Victor corroborates this information, he asks Superman how he is going to catch up to him, when Clark replies that he doesn't have to. All he needs to do is meet him head-on, crushing Barry at full force. As Superman turns back saying that he is sorry, something unexpected happens. It seems he hit Flash so fast that 2 of his fingers got stuck in the right side of his stomach. Minutes later, he is back at the fortress when Wallace notices that something is off. Superman, unable to look up, says, "Barry's gone. I am sorry, and so am I." He proceeds to ask him if he can connect Lois, his mom, and John to the Speed Force. Knowing well that his time has come, Superman tells his mom how much he appreciates what they did for him, for raising him, for the teachings, and for giving him their last name. But more importantly, they gave him a second opportunity after his world ended. To Lois, he says he has no regrets, and honestly doesn't understand how lucky he got that somehow he found her, and she chose him. From a distance, John has started to understand what just happened. Clark gets closer to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I know things look dark, but you're the light. You're the hope," he said. As tears take over him, Superman reminds him to keep helping. "You are going to make mistakes and fail sometimes, but I will always, always be proud of you. I've seen so much of the universe. You're the best thing in it." After saying his goodbyes, he takes flight and leaves Earth. He is trying to starve himself of oxygen before the virus can take him. But sadly, any hope the world had was gone with him. On a rainy day, people observe what has always been considered a sign of hope coming their way. But something isn't right. In seconds, Superman crashes into a building, decimating everything in his path, and through the smoke and rubble he appears. Meanwhile, at the Fortress of Solitude, Cyborg alerts everyone that if it is true that Superman has returned, then it's over. The Arks are ready, so it is better to leave now. Lois mentions that if they leave now with the Arks, Superman might take them down both in a heartbeat, to which Diana adds that they need to take him down first. As they ask themselves how they can do it, Damian appears with one of Bruce's contingency plans. "Batman left a takedown plan for every major hero," he says, when Ollie chimes in, mentioning that of course he did. He doesn't even have to be alive to scheme against them, to which Damian replies that he didn't leave one for him. Dinah starts to mock him when he mentions that he could be a planetary threat if he ever wanted to. Seconds later, Alfred tells Damian that Master Bruce stocked the belt himself, and he should check his right hip pocket. As he does, he finds a piece of kryptonite. Cyborg proceeds to check the contents of the plans, mentioning that Batman left schematics that would turn kryptonite into a suppressing gas, which would definitely slow Superman down. "But is not enough," replies Diana. Before Damian tries to defend his father's plan, she chimes in again. "Bruce was a lot of things, but he was never lethal. It was admirable, but we can't hold back." As Dinah asks if she has a better solution, Diana responds, "Of course. You think Batman's the only one with enough sense to plot against his friends?" She orders everyone to move to the Arks, while Dinah should come with her. Minutes later, as the sound of hammering echoes through the Fortress of Solitude, Dinah, from a distance, asks if it will work. Wonder Woman, fully committed, mentions that Clark is vulnerable to kryptonite and magic. So, years ago, she and her mother hypothesized if they could ever combine the two. Now, with the sword finished, she mentions that Athena was more than the goddess of war. She was the goddess of mathematics, and they are fighting an equation. As the days pass, the team begins to embark all the survivors into the Arks, when Poison Ivy mentions that she is not going. She will not abandon the Green, to which Harley also decides to stay. Meanwhile, on Themyscira, Ollie is coordinating the second arc when Philippus mentions that something is happening out at sea. Immediately, Mera asks for the evacuation to continue on high ground and to place the warriors around the Ark and the refugees. She knows very well what's coming. In seconds, as the words leave her mouth, Aquaman appears riding the Kraken. It seems Arthur has been following Mera since she left Atlantis. However, something unexpected happens. An arrow strikes Aquaman right in the head, killing him instantly. From the distance, Green Arrow shouts, "And Batman didn't think I could be dangerous. I just fired an arrow half a mile through raging winds into the brain of the undead king of the sea, while he was controlling the Kraken. Fuck you, Batman." Meanwhile, an infected Superman has turned New York into a wasteland. Green Lantern mentions that it wasn't hard to find him, while looking at the amount of devastation he has left behind. dead. She proceeds to ask Cyborg if there is anyone alive, when he responds that there are no life signals at all, giving her the green light to not hold back. Dinah constructs a gigantic megaphone that, in combination with her canary cry, makes Superman fall to his knees. Back in Themyscira, as the fight intensifies, Antiope is suddenly bitten on one of her arms. Philippus moves in immediately to help her, but it is already too late. Minutes later, Ollie shouts that the last refugees have boarded the Ark and it's time to go, when Mera asks about the Amazons. However, there is no way they can be extracted from that swarm of death. Queen Hippolyta, who knows too well that this fight is unwinnable, shouts to Cassie that it is time to go. Wonder Girl asks the Queen to come with her, but she refuses. As she hands the crown to Cassie, she leaves a message for Wonder Woman. "Tell Diana, tell my daughter the promise of Themyscira is hers to honor now." Back in New York, Superman manages to break free of Dinah's attack when she receives a message from Ollie, letting her know that the first arc has already taken off. Suddenly, Superman flies toward her, hitting her shield with full force. Cyborg tries to help, but it seems ineffective. She can only watch as the monstrous figure gets inches away, when in a single motion, Wonder Woman appears, cutting Superman's right arm clean off. Without wasting any time, she strikes again, this time through his chest. Superman roars in desperation after being impaled by the sword of Athena. Incredible enough, this doesn't stop him, as with a furious punch, he destroys Wonder Woman's stomach. As Dinah is focused on what just happened, Superman ignores them and takes his leave. Cyborg moves fast to catch Diana when she mentions that he has already seen the arcs, so it is now up to them to stop him. Victor tells Dinah that she should go. He is going to stay with her until the time comes. She tries to push him to leave when he says, "The virus started with me, Dinah. I was never coming with you. Now go." Up in space, John has observed how the fight went and proceeds to tell Damian that his father is on his way. Damian asks him what he can do for him, when John replies to look after his mother before hugging him tightly, mentioning that he will be a great Batman. On his way out, Lois tries to stop him, but with a smile he responds that everything is going to be okay. He knows what he has to do. Minutes later, he takes flight, and from a distance, he can see what is left of his father coming his way. Without hesitation, the two go head-on, crashing against each other with extreme force. Sadly, while John falls unconscious, nothing seems to stop Superman, whose eyes are now glowing with even more rage. Suddenly, Dinah appears, ready to assist John when a message comes in. "Attention, Green Lantern of Sector 2814. The cavalry has arrived." Guy Gardner, accompanied by every Green Lantern from this sector, comes to their aid. As she asks what's happening, Gardner smiles. "I leave you alone for like a month and the whole place goes to hell." Ganthet, one of the Guardians of the Universe, adds that the Green Lantern Corps has placed Earth under quarantine. As Gardner asks what Superman is doing, Dinah responds, "That's not Superman, and it's thinking, working out if it can take us all on." She looks directly at the monstrous figure and shouts, "You're an equation, do the math." Funny enough, it actually works. Superman flies out, and Ganthet orders them to follow him. However, they stop immediately. The Green Lanterns ask what he is doing when the Guardian adds, "It's feeding, absorbing, draining the sun. In time, this entire solar system will grow cold and die." Dinah questions if they are going to do something about it, when, with a soft tone, he replies that even the Green Lantern's light isn't powerful enough to reach into the heart of a star. Perhaps it is for the best. We cannot wipe out the virus directly. We cannot risk exposure, but if this system freezes, the virus will sleep. We will monitor this sun and your world. But it is time to move the survivors. It is time for a new world. It is time for humanity to leave its birthplace. Now back in New York, Cyborg is facing a fully turned Wonder Woman. With the lasso of truth, he compels her to speak. The monster stays silent for a second, then looks back at him with a cold stare. "We have a voice. Is there a way to stop you?" asks Victor. "We are death. Nothing can stop death." But when Cyborg mentions that she is a virus, that there should be a cure, she responds, "Yes." He looks down for a second, then proceeds to ask where it is. The monster stays silent for a moment when he shouts in desperation, asking again. Suddenly, the answer freezes him. "The cure is in you," says the equation. "You are man and machine. You are binary, off and on. Patient 0 and the 1, the Alpha, the Omega." Victor can't believe this revelation. It would mean that everyone they have fought, everyone they ended, didn't have to die. He then looks at the sky, knowing well that the Arcs should know this information. But before he can react, Wonder Woman approaches silently, snaps his head off his body, and throws it away. Life is fleeting. That is the only truth. Death is forever. While all this is happening, we can observe the Green Lanterns guiding the survivors to their new home. a home that will be called Earth 2. 2 weeks ago, another story was unfolding, where Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, following Superman's order to rescue Cyborg, reach Apocalypse just seconds before Darkseid destroys it. Miracle can't believe that his father is dead, but after Barda asks him how he feels, he stops for a second, thinking, actually, pretty good, and after a kiss, they go back home. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Mr. Terrific has captured Captain Boomerang. It seems he is running some sort of test as a way to understand how the virus reacts. Deep analysis of the virus code shows no obvious flaws, and I'm hesitant to attempt any change for fear of corruption, he says. I have 14 PhDs, and I'm stumped. After hearing more of the monsters outside, he proceeds to leave the building in search of the source. Now, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda are debating if they should open the door to their apartment. As she goes to open it, Miracle stops her, but with a smile she adds, I don't think the undead knock that politely. Scott's eyes narrow as he agrees, when suddenly Michael appears, mentioning that he was tracking the planet for Apokoliptian technology, which brought him here. He was hoping they could take him to Apocalypse as a means to find the origin of all this, when Barda replies that the planet was destroyed. Mr. Terrific frowns for a second and then adds, I see. Then we move on to the other plans. Now in Cord Industries, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are surrounded by the dead. When Theodore mentions that it's okay, the door is made out of titanium. Nothing is getting past. In seconds, an explosion takes the door away effortlessly when Big Barda appears, shouting that they are almost done with the dead. Booster offers to help, but Michael's T-spheres seem to be very effective against the undead. Seconds later, aboard the Blue Beetle's bug, Theodore asks if it is really the end of the world, when Michael responds that they should have a say, but they will only know once they reach England. The origin of the virus is gone, he continues. Their next option is magic. Blue Beetle's eyes sharpen after hearing that. Magic is notoriously unreliable. What if it's a dead end? Suddenly, Mr. Terrific lowers his sight, mentioning that there is a third option, but it could go very badly. He prefers not to think about it yet. The idea of risking all time and space as a means to save humanity. Now, through the streets of Liverpool, John Constantine runs for his life while being chased by a swarm of undead when he reaches Chaz's taxi, shouting in desperation to start the bloody car. However, his old friend has long been gone. "Aw, mate, I am so sorry," he says before immolating his body. He jumps into the front seat and drives out immediately, but it only takes a few meters before he crashes. Why didn't I ever learn to drive? He mutters to himself. Now completely overwhelmed by the dead, he hears an explosion outside that burns every one of them. And as he looks outside to acknowledge his saviors, he proceeds to light a cigarette, almost annoyed by their presence. Oh, look at this. 2 misters and a big... Why can't you people get regular names? Mr. Terrific. What kind of arrogant sod is comfortable walking around with that hanging around him? Mr. Miracle, who finds Constantine's tone undesirable, asks if he's okay. John insists that everything is good. He just set his best mate on fire and crashed his car while sitting on his ashes. Seconds later, he proceeds to ask them how they found him, when Michael replies that he has a Justice League membership in his wallet, which has a transponder inside. Mr. Terrific mentions that since he hasn't found a technological solution to all this, he was hoping there could be a magical one. Nah, already tried, John replies. This is beyond magical. This is find somewhere well stocked and enjoy what's left time. So you are not going to help? Pushes Michael. I'm going to hide and get so irresponsibly drunk I can barely feel anything. Care to join me? He says. Knowing well he is not getting anything out of him, the group leaves, leaving the door open if he decides to change his mind. Blue Beetle, who observes how the conversation went, mentions that their magician just stepped into a portal and vanished. Michael frowns, adding that they are left with option 3. He proceeds to tell Booster Gold that he is the last resource that can save humanity, since he owns a time machine when Carter, unable to meet his gaze, says, "Yeah, kind of. I stole a time machine." Blue Beetle asks where is it, when Carter tells him that it is in safe hands, but they will need to visit some old friends. As they approach the House of Fire and Ice, the place smells rotten. Big Barda, looking outside, says, "It looks like they fought hard, but there is no way of knowing if they are still alive in there." Suddenly, Mr. Miracle's eyes widen as he sees a corrupted fire coming their way. She engulfs the ship in green flames before crashing it with full force. Big Barda kicks the door of the ship and shouts at the rest to run for the house. She and Miracle will take care of the dead. The two begin to smash as many enemies as they can when Ice appears. Now with 2 powerful enemies up front plus the undead, they begin to be overwhelmed. Knowing well that they will die, they take the chance to give Booster Gold the time he needs, and as the monsters begin to pile around them, they perish to the equation. Meanwhile, the team rushes toward the time machine, killing anything in their path. However, an unexpected visitor appears. "Michael Carter," says the voice with a sharp tone. "You will not be permitted to change time." Now in front of them is Waverider, whom Booster Gold describes as a linear man, master of time, and he doesn't believe they are getting past him. Now in the Oblivion Bar, John Constantine, after rejecting Michael's offer to help, is about to drink himself to death as a way to forget all this mess. "Bobo, give me the bottle from the top shelf that made the phantom stranger forget his own name." Detective Chimp hands it to him, but as he stares at the bottle, he feels uneasy and decides to leave. "Where are you going?" shouts Bobo. "Tell anyone who asks that I was out of my scone when I decided to do this, to be a fucking hero." Back in Malibu, Waverider makes his stand. "You are under arrest, Michael Carter. The machine will be confiscated and you will..." When suddenly, through a portal, John appears. "Oi, take a good look, Sparkleface. Can you see my future?" He stops for a second when he realizes that he can't. "Now watch the hand closely," adds John, but he doesn't understand what this means. With a smile on his face, Constantine says, "This is called misdirection," before headbutting Waverider right in the nose. "Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you, Time Lord?" After all this commotion, Booster Gold hears something coming their way when, through one of the walls, Big Barda appears, ready to snap John's neck. But luckily, Mr. Terrific interferes, kicking her in the back. However, now face to face with death itself, nobody can react quickly before she decides to split his body in half, killing him instantly. Blue Beetle shouts to Carter to use the time machine, but before he can reach it, he falls to his knees, unable to move. Theodore tries to help him, but with a cold tone, Waverider mentions that everything is happening as it should. Kal-El of Krypton has found Barry Allen of Earth in the rubble of Keystone City. Immediately, Booster Gold realizes what just happened, and with sadness in his eyes mentions, "I think we just lost the future. I don't think I was ever born." Blue Beetle can't believe his eyes, shouting in desperation as one of his friends vanishes in front of him. Now hopeless, he gives in to the equation without a fight. Waverider, with a poker face, says that it is time for him to go, when John mentions how hypocritical he is, choosing to protect this timeline in particular. "No, I am far from happy," he replies. "Goodbye, John Constantine. I don't know if we will meet again." "Oh, we'll meet again. I'll find you, cunt," says John when he suddenly changes his mind. "Actually, you know what? You've thoroughly pissed me off." Waverider's eyes widen as he notices that he can't use his time travel, asking why he can't move. It seems Constantine has formed a pact that binds them, which means they are stuck in this reality. As the undead approach them, he smiles. "I can see our future. It's short." In seconds, a corrupted Blue Beetle lunges at him, cutting his neck, while John just stays there, waiting for his turn to die. However, at the last second, through a portal, Dr. Fate and Zatanna appear, telling Constantine that this is not his time, and that another fate awaits him. However, in a single motion, John punches him in the helmet to the point of almost breaking his hand. "I get a last-second rescue, but actual heroes have to die," he says. "That guy's name was Mr. Terrific, and he sodding earned it." Dr. Fate tells him that he is sorry, but this was his fate, before John lashes out again. "Oh, shut it. Not a big believer in destiny, mate. Takes all the human out of it." "The world is ending, John Constantine," pushes Dr. Fate. "We must prepare for what comes next." "The Lords of Chaos and Order can eat a giant bag of bollocks," interrupts John again, now looking back at them directly in the eyes. "The world isn't over until I say it is." Now back to the first day of the anti-life equation. Deathstroke finds himself in Kentucky. He is following the lead of a group of bastards who have been setting churches on fire. Therefore, someone hires him to pay them a visit. As he approaches the remote house, one of the individuals suddenly jumps from the second floor, breaking his leg in the process. Slade has seen a lot of people running in his life, but never someone trying to run with a shattered leg. Without hesitation, the job begins, putting a bullet in that one first. However, something strange happens. A group of neo-Nazis suddenly stumbles through the door, running in fear like they just saw the devil. As he turns to face what all that noise is coming from inside, he faces a swarm of undead for the first time. With no questions asked, he moves in, slicing everyone in his path while putting bullets in the heads of others. But he makes a huge mistake. The virus that was propagated once Cyborg appears on Earth reaches Slade's phone, which he looks at directly. In seconds, he can feel how his head is about to explode, when suddenly everything goes black. No one knows how many hours have passed when he suddenly begins to snap out of that trance. He looks at his hand as he chokes someone to death when he suddenly realizes that he is in the middle of the city, 2 days after the outbreak started. Now in Wayne Manor, Red Hood walks into the Batcave calling for everyone, but everything seems so silent. Seconds later, he stops when he sees his own reflection in a puddle of blood. He looks up again, but his eyes can't believe it. Lying in front of him are Batman, Nightwing, and Robin. Suddenly, he hears a growling noise and turns immediately, pointing his guns, but right in front of him is Ace. In distress, Jason calls for him, and after recognizing his scent, he calms down. Don't worry, we're not going to leave them like this. Minutes later, as he walks through the mansion, he finds a shovel and proceeds to dig 3 graves where he buries them. He then jumps into the Batmobile and asks the system to locate the rest of the Bat family. The computer comes back with 8 locations, but as Jason asks how many of them are alive, his eyes sharpen as he hears only 2. He looks back at Ace, asking if he is coming. The dog jumps in, and now, as he leaves to look for the remaining ones, we can see the carving on Bruce's grave. Father, Mentor, Bastard, and Batman. Hours later, as the night falls, Rose Wilson finds herself in her apartment unable to move. Suddenly, she hears the radio. As she picks it up, Deathstroke tells her that it is time to go, but her precognitive ability keeps telling her that if she opens that door, she will die in seconds by the equation. However, Slade insists, asking her to get to the rooftop and bring every weapon possible, and to please not look at any screens. As she reaches the top of the building, he throws the boarding stairs at her. However, an unexpected guest is coming his way, and he shouts to her not to climb. In seconds, Man-Bat appears. It seems Dr. Kirk has also perished to the virus and bites Deathstroke in his left arm. He manages to shoot him in his right side, but in the process loses control of the helicopter and crashes it into the building. Rose runs in desperation, asking for him, and from the flames he appears, all covered in blood. Ravager doesn't lose time, saying she is sorry, and impales Wilson right in the chest with her sword. "Ow, shit!" he screams, before Rose realizes that he is still alive. "I am sorry. I thought you were a zombie," she says. "I don't know what they are," replies Deathstroke, "but they are not zombies. My healing factor reversed whatever the hell this is." Suddenly, a voice chimes in. "Interesting. He was right about you." The two turn immediately, pointing their guns at it, when Mirror Master appears. "Don't shoot. It's 7 years of bad luck, and frankly, I don't want to see what bad luck looks like on top of an undead apocalypse." As the two ask what he is doing, he tells them that Vandal Savage has an offer, and he can probably help extend it to his daughter. Slade then proceeds to ask what the exchange is, when Mirror Master replies that they are looking for the protection his skills can provide, or he can just leave them there on the rooftop, and they can try to get their chopper back in the air. After some sarcasm, he proceeds to give them some goggles that can protect them from the screens, preventing the anti-life equation. As they proceed to step into the mirror, they see all the attacks and destruction across the world. Seconds later, they finally cross into Vandal Savage's hideout, where he is waiting for them. After some conversation about how they found this island, he proceeds to show them the rest of the group, which is composed of none other than pure supervillains. Back in Gotham, at the police department, Batgirl, Commissioner Gordon, and Bullock are fighting for their lives, trying to keep the undead at bay. As they move to Cell Block A, Bullock tells Gordon the hard truth. Jim, she's the only bat coming. Suddenly, an undead jumps straight at him, cutting his face. Gordon acts immediately, but it is too late. His friend begins to beg in desperation to be killed when Batgirl steps in and dislocates his neck. The dead keep piling around them when the Batmobile crashes through a wall. For a second, Gordon's eyes widen as he thinks Batman has finally arrived. However, that thought is lost immediately as he sees bullets hitting the undead's heads, killing them instantly. "No, not Batman. Get in the car," says Red Hood before taking off. As Commissioner Gordon asks what the plan is, Jason replies that up to this point, he just wants to get the hell out of Gotham. Jim tries to explain that his daughter is somewhere out there when, with a cold tone, Jason replies that she isn't. "What are you talking about?" he asks. "Car, show me the heart monitor for Barbara Gordon." In seconds, Jim's eyes widen as he sees the screen. He tries to ask questions about all this when Jason interrupts him. "You're a smart man and a good detective," he says. "Batman's dead. You don't have to play his game anymore." Suddenly, everything becomes clear to him. Recognizing Jason, Cassandra, and immediately understanding who the rest are. Todd tells him that the last time he checked, Damian and Alfred were in Metropolis, and right now they are the only ones alive in Gotham. After hearing that, he asks if he is being monitored. Jason doesn't deny it, saying, "Batman was terrible at expressing anything with words, and he had absolutely no consideration for personal boundaries, but he violated your trust and secretly monitored you for a reason. Bruce thought of you as family, Jim. Seconds later, Gordon mentions that the equipment may be wrong, but Jason reaffirmed to him that it isn't, before asking him to please take him to her, and as he sees his beloved daughter dead, he breaks down in tears. Batgirl cleans the tears from his face, telling him to mourn later. Now they need to move. As she calls for Jason, she sees him staring at the deceased body of the Joker. His face hardens as he says that it should have been him who killed him, before Cassandra pushes him to go. However, Red Hood takes out some zip ties, mentioning that there is something he must do first, before attaching the Joker's body to the front of the Batmobile. Commissioner Gordon, taking a drink after seeing what he did, looks back at Jason and says, "This is pretty fucked up." A day later in Bloodhaven, the three find themselves looking at what looks like an orphanage. However, Jason tells them that there is a huge concentration of the unliving surrounding it. Cassandra mentions that there seem to be survivors trapped inside, to which he gives the order to the car to disable all non-lethal safety protocols. As he does so, he proceeds to lay waste to the undead, burning all of them in an instant. Gordon shouts to get through the driveway, where the car overrides the radio, opening the garage for them. Now inside, they ask themselves who aligned the buses that way, when Jim replies that he has his answer. Right in front of them is a group of kids, armed with whatever they have found. As the group gets out, Jason tells them that everything is all right. They are the good guys. However, Gordon gets closer to him and whispers to him to get the psychotic clown out of the hood before it scares the kids. Jim presents himself, while adding that these two are real superheroes called Batgirl and Robin, to which Jason looks back at him, annoyed. Seconds later, as they walk through the school, Letitia, who is in charge, mentions that her caregivers just left, while others are trapped in the gym. Red Hood looks at the door, which seems to have been blocked with extreme force, and asks who blocked it. Letitia replies that there was a real superhero. They didn't know her, but she blocked the door, barricaded the windows, and brought a lot of food before she went away and never came back. One of the kids asks if they are going to leave too, when Cassandra points out that this is a good place to fight. Gordon agrees. This is really a good place to make a stand, before Jason shakes Letitia's hand, adding that orphans have to stick together. As night falls, Red Hood mentions to Gordon that they have to do something about the gym, but he replies, "The infected are not a threat while they're locked in there. What do you propose? You want to open the doors and just blaze away?" Cassandra suddenly interrupts, mentioning that there is a message on the radio. As they get closer, they hear Lois Lane broadcasting, "If you can hear me, within hours, we are leaving Earth. We invite anyone out there to join us. We have two sanctuaries, the island of Themyscira and Poison Ivy's jungle in Gotham." However, Jim does something unexpected and turns the radio off. Jason tries to ask what he is doing. There is a jungle in Gotham, they might be able to make it. Gordon turns back, mentioning that they might, but there's no way the three of them can safely get all those children to another city. He looks at both of them directly in the eyes while adding, "We stay here, we defend, and we say nothing. We don't tell them their heroes are leaving them behind." Now in Bull's Pyramid, Mirror Master approaches Shiva, mentioning that he has found her. As she hears this, she looks back immediately, her eyes sharpening, asking him to take her. Back in Bloodhaven, Cassandra is patrolling the school when someone whispers her name. As she turns quickly, she sees her mother standing there, mentioning that she has a safe place. Cassandra stops her for a second and tells her to wait, before showing her the group of survivors. However, with a cold tone, she says, "Out of the question. We don't have room." Cassandra rejects the offer when Shiva tells her not to be stupid. The world is ending. She doesn't have to end with it. Now face to face, Mirror Master tries to calm things down, mentioning that they are surrounded by the undead. If Vandal Savage finds out about this, he is going to be really pissed that they have left the sanctuary. In seconds, the fight starts, with Cassandra blocking the first strike before counterattacking. Shiva evades quickly before landing a punch on her daughter. However, before the fight can continue, Jason intervenes and grabs her arm. I am not going to lie. Part of me very much wants to watch and see how this plays out. Suddenly, Lady Shiva kicks him right in the face, sending him flying through the corridor. Before she can make the next move, Gordon appears and points his gun, telling her, "That's enough." As she looks back at her daughter, mentioning that she offered her a chance because they are family, Cassandra replies that this is her family now, before watching her mother vanish through the mirror. Now on the other side, Vandal Savage looks furious, mentioning that this is survival, not a charity, and Mirror Master is their contingency plan if everything goes wrong. He grabs Lady Shiva with force, shouting that he is not going to risk the island because of her personal errands, when Slade intervenes. I suggest you stand down. You've brought a volatile group of killers under the same roof. We're tense. And worse, we're bored. Best not piss each other off. We are not going to outlive the apocalypse if we kill each other. Seconds later, Vandal lowers his tone and asks Deathstroke if he can walk with him for a second to speak in private. Rose whispers to her father that this doesn't sound like a good idea, when Wilson assures her that it's all right. As they walk toward a metal door, Vandal tells him that there is something he would like him to see. Clearly, he should have brought him sooner into this. Now inside the room, Slade sees the Creeper being subjected to a strange operation. When he asks what the hell this is supposed to be, Savage pushes him toward Grundy, who wastes no time punching him with full force, knocking him out. Minutes later, as Slade begins to wake up, the Creeper laughs as he sees him next to him. "You got betrayed too, huh? I gotta say, I did not see this coming." Wilson tries to ask why he is doing this, when Savage replies that since they are both immune to this virus, he is going to pull them apart as a means to find out. However, a sword suddenly impales him through his back when Ravager appears. "Don't try to double-cross someone who can see the future, asshole." She proceeds to free her father when Vandal shouts to Solomon Grundy to help him. As she helps the Creeper escape as well, she suddenly turns in fear, telling everyone to run. Vandal asks her what she saw, when Rose replies that she wouldn't want to spoil the surprise. "I have lived for 53,000 years. I am barely surprised," says Vandal. In seconds, through one of the walls, Wonder Woman appears, looking directly at him. In the blink of an eye, Wonder Woman moves in and grabs Vandal Savage, splitting him in half. Grundy reacts quickly, lunging at her, while the rest are advised by Rose to get the hell out of there. Seconds later, Grundy is seen flying through a wall while Diana also appears. The team tries to hold her as much as they can when Lady Shiva shouts at Cheetah to grab Grundy and leave. Captain Cold tells everyone to leave. He will try to hold her as much as he can before Mirror Master replies that he is coming back for him. As they cross one of the mirrors into the orphanage, one of the kids suddenly screams in fear as he sees Solomon Grundy. The Creeper tries to calm him down, mentioning that, yeah, technically he is a zombie, but he is their zombie. Seconds later, Mirror Master decides to look back for Cold, but as he crosses, he finds himself in a completely frozen place. He proceeds to call for Leonard when he sees Diana looking for them. However, he is taken by surprise by his own teammate, who bites him right in the neck. Back in the orphanage, Cassandra runs toward her mother after seeing her come back, while Gordon adds that she also brought murderers, psychopaths, and monsters. As Jason asks Rose what she is doing here, she replies that it is better to have this conversation more privately, away from the kids' ears, before mentioning that they are waiting for 2 more. However, Slade looks back at her and tells her that they are not coming. Minutes later, as they reunite in the kitchen, Rose is the first to talk. "We were out at sea, miles from anywhere, when an undead Wonder Woman hit us. My theory? She is flying around the world dealing out death, and the anti-life equation can somehow sense life. It would explain the unhealthy buildup of blighted ones surrounding the walls outside," adds Jason. Slade chimes in, mentioning that they could be hit again or by any other powered undead, so they may need to get ready. As they begin to discuss where they stay and how they would manage to live among each other, Gordon interrupts, adding that he is not confident about all this, especially Bane, who has killed a lot of his men. He smiles back at him, taunting him. "You going to arrest me, Gordon?" Slade proceeds to ask how many children they have, when Cassandra mentions 43. "That's a hell of a liability," adds Deadshot, before Slade says, "That's one way to think about it. I'm thinking it's not quite an army, but it's something we can work with." Jason and Gordon can't believe their ears, reminding them that they are just children, before Bane pushes back, adding that no one get to be innocent now, when Slade mentions, "You can't protect them from this, Gordon." However, Jim explodes at the comment, shouting, "I fucking can." Deathstroke suddenly senses something and asks for the room for 1 minute. As he looks back at Gordon, he asks if he lost someone. At first, Jim doesn't want to answer, when Slade proceeds to tell him that he lost his 2 boys. "I can heal, but there is no healing from that. It hurts worse than anything," to which Gordon understands that feeling. Slade continues by saying that they are not going to protect these kids or themselves by pretending the monsters aren't out there. This isn't an ideal situation for anyone. anyone, but he is a practical man. I don't want to lead this group, and Bane will step in if you don't. Jim tries to argue that he can't lead people he doesn't trust, when Slade mentions that he held the worst city in the country together by sheer force of will. You telling me you think you're the only police commissioner in the world who didn't have dirty cops working for him? Because let me tell you, a lot of your people were on my payroll. Seconds later, as the conversation is over, Gordon agrees to let the villains stay under the condition that they do not abuse their hospitality. Tonight, they get to be set up with beds and food, but tomorrow, they get to meet the kids and start to prepare. Rose suddenly points out what the hell is behind the door to the gym, when he replies that those are the ones that didn't make it, and some are even children. Immediately, this information puts the rest on edge, arguing that they should do something about it. They can't just have a room full of infected. Slade proceeds to tell Gordon to go back to the kids and make up an excuse for the noise. They will take care of the rest. As Cassandra encourages Jim to go, he looks back at Jason. However, as he takes his guns out, he tells him to just walk away. There's work to do. Deathstroke gives the order to Grundy to break the whole door out, and as they get into the room, Red Hood freezes for a moment. Right in front of him is none other than Billy Batson, Shazam. He lowers his head for a second, adding that it doesn't matter, when Slade gives the order to finally open fire. As the days pass, the training begins, with some of the villains turning into tutors for the kids. Each one of them tries to give them some of their expertise in their own areas, while others just become caregivers. Later that day, Jason and Rose walk through the school when they overhear Slade's training program. "You think the undead are going to help you up if you fall, Gareth?" Jason tries to make him slow down a little, when he replies that of course he was going to say that. Batman was too soft on them. Todd pushes back immediately. Batman was soft? Are we talking about the same pointy-eared Batman? When Slade crosses the line, the way I hear it, he let you run before you were ready to walk, and the result was a clown caved your head in with a crowbar. Rose intervenes immediately, when he suddenly stops and looks at both of them directly. "Are you two a thing?" Both Jason and Rose blush after hearing that, unable to respond. "You should be," continues Slade. "Not a lot of happy out there. Find it where you can. We're probably all going to die screaming." Minutes later, as the two patrol the orphanage, they talk about their childhood and which one of their mentors was worse. Todd smiles at her, asking if she wants to compare emotional scars, when she replies, "Sure, I'll show you mine if you show me." "Oh." She stops for a second and says, "I get glimpses of the future, and you're about to try to kiss me." Back inside, Bane, now unmasked by the student's petition, is walking the corridor when he hears something. As he turns back rapidly, he sees Ace growling furiously. "Easy, dog. I won't hurt you. There's nothing to be afraid of." However, Ace isn't afraid of him, but of what is lurking through the mirrors. In seconds, Mirror Master appears and cuts him right in the back. Jason and Rose hear the scream coming from the orphanage and run toward it, where they find Gordon and Deadshot protecting the kids. Suddenly, Mirror Master strikes again, this time grabbing one of them, before Deadshot manages to push him back. However, he is taken instead and dragged into the mirror. Knowing well that he is lost, Gordon shoots and breaks it, leaving just the two boots behind. He then proceeds to tell them to cover the kids, while they look for a room without windows or mirrors, when Cassandra appears, mentioning that Bane just turned and walked right through her without stopping. As he asks where he was heading, the answer gives him a hint of what's coming, and as he goes through the gym's door, he sees it. Bane, guided by the anti-life equation, opens a hole in the west side wall of the orphanage, letting all the monsters that were once held back flood inside. In seconds, Bane makes his move toward them, when Jim and Slade shout for everyone to get inside and stay away from windows and mirrors. Out of nowhere, Grundy appears, preventing Bane from continuing the chase, and in a single motion grabs his head, tearing it out completely and throwing it to the rest of the undead. He then shouts at everyone to run when the children appear, mentioning that they will not leave Uncle Grundy behind. As they move into the offensive, the adults can do nothing less than follow. The Creeper suddenly jumps straight into the battle and grabs Solomon before taking him away from the swarm of death. Immediately, Jim shouts for everyone to get into the corridor so they can use it as a kill box. Slade looks back at him surprised. "Planning a kill box? I like this side of you, but a corridor full of bodies zombies is only an effective barrier for so long. Believe me, I speak from experience. As he asks what their next step would be, Gordon replies to get to the bus. They will make a run for the Gotham jungle. However, Jason isn't sure they will find anyone left in there before Jim asks him if he has a better option. Minutes later, through an explosion, the Batmobile appears, taking the lead ahead through the swarm of undead. Incredibly enough, they seem to be making good time with only a few barricades in their way when Slade senses something. Unable to react quickly, Mirror Master appears and scratches his face through the rearview mirror. This shakes one of the buses, making Gordon take over, while Slade shouts at everyone to knock all of the windows out. However, he lunges again, this time able to grab one of the kids. Grundy tries to react, but it is hopeless. Then another is lost. Letitia then grabs a bat and begins to destroy each one of them, before Mirror Master makes his move again. This time, Ace responds, biting his arm, before Cheetah moves in and in a single motion penetrates Mirror Master's head with her claws. Jason, who sees all the commotion, asks if everyone is okay in the bus when they reply that they managed to take him down, but some of the kids were lost in the process. Jason says he is sorry, but they are almost there. He can see the garden from here. Suddenly, Rose's eyes widen as she sees the swarm of undead surrounding the sanctuary. This confirms that there are definitely people inside. As for how they will manage to get in, Jason pushes the car at full speed. However, something is off. Rose asks him if he can hear that. It sounds like an alarm, to which he replies that Batman would never. It's a radar, something low, but coming fast. Jason, I can see the future, she adds. I know what's coming. Rose proceeds to ask him to put his seatbelt on. When he mentions not to worry, not even a missile will dent this car. In seconds, through the sky, something hits the Batmobile with full force, sending it flying through the air in flames, and from it, Wonder Woman appears. Cheetah, who has been waiting for this, gets out of the bus and lunges at her with speed, grabbing her and taking her out of the way. Slade, who knows very well she will not be able to beat Diana, hints for the Creeper to help. At the same time, Solomon Grundy places his hand on his shoulder, mentioning that lobsters need to stick together before jumping straight into battle. Cheetah twists Diana's arms, making her unable to block the incoming attack, when Creeper jumps in, hitting her with a kick straight to the head, followed by Grundy's punch. This gives enough time for Slade to shout to Jim to leave the bus and reunite with the others. Gordon asks what he is going to do, when he replies that he will make an opening for them. Also, he needs to rescue Rose, since all this was entirely his fault. Jim responds that he is coming too, when he asks why. That's Batman's son in there, and you might help with your girl. We've lost enough kids, Slade. At the bus behind, Lady Shiva asks why they aren't moving, when Deathstroke replies that they have an Amazon problem. He is sending everyone her way. She shouts at Cassandra to get the rest of the kids, while she takes on the anti-living coming. One by one, the rest of the survivors get into the bus, but when Batgirl is about to move, she is suddenly grabbed by her cape. Her mother stands immediately, telling everyone to stay put, and designates Letitia as the new driver, telling her to just follow the other bus. She moves in, slashing a few undead on her way, and tells Cassandra to keep fighting. Unable to believe her mother came back, since she always mentioned that it is not worth risking everything for one person, Lady Shiva frowns at the comment, "Don't make a big deal of it. Accept that I love you and shut up." Seconds later, the two rush toward the bus, with Mary waiting for them. However, the unexpected happens. All it takes is a scratch in the back before she makes her move and cuts the undead's head off. She tells her daughter that it's over when Batgirl, with tears in her eyes, raises her dagger, but Shiva stops her. "A daughter shouldn't have to. You were the only person I admired." Those are her last words before she tears her own heart out. Meanwhile, Gordon reaches the Batmobile, asking if they are okay, when Rose replies that Jason is out cold. As he begins to take them out of there, Slade is keeping the undead at bay, before shouting to go to the bus and start driving. Suddenly, at full speed, Grundy is smashed against one of the buses, bending it. "Our bus just folded in half," shouts Gordon. "We're not driving it anywhere, and we can't make it to the next one." Deathstroke tells him to keep going. He will keep them off them, before getting close to Jason. "I like you, kid." Rose can glimpse the future, so don't even think about hurting her or she'll probably kill you. Remember that. He then shouts at everyone to go before Rose gets close to him and hugs him tightly for a second. At the same time, some of the members are perishing by Wonder Woman's hand, who crushes Cheetah's neck while decapitating Creeper. She then moves against Solomon Grundy, thrusting through his chest in a single punch before being overwhelmed by the dead. From the distance, Rose observes her father giving everything he has against this monster. When a bigger one appears, Wonder Woman takes another life by destroying Slade's body as a whole. She then moves against the rest, grabbing the last bus standing and lifting it through the air before sending it flying as a means to kill everyone aboard. It seems everyone knows this is the end when something happens. Mary Marvel, who has been hiding all along among them, suddenly calls upon her power. Shazam! She shouts before holding the bus from the inside, preventing it from crashing. Immediately, the rest recognize her. She was the superhero who barricaded the orphanage and brought all that food for them. As she flies out toward Wonder Woman, the two face each other for seconds before Diana makes her move. Mary grabs her hands and proceeds to break the right one before punching her with full force, sending her crashing against the dirt. Knowing well Diana will come back, she grabs the bus with her own hands and lifts it into the air. And before their eyes, the garden opens. Now finally inside, they tell everyone that Wonder Woman will be coming when Poison Ivy appears. She won't. She can't breach the garden. It seems the sanctuary has been protected by not one, but 3 magically protected barriers provided by Dr. Fate, Zatanna, and John Constantine. And as the days pass, they make a monument for those who gave their lives as a means for them to live. Now, 2 weeks ago at the Palace of Kahndaq, Black Adam is flying through the kingdom, laying waste to every undead on sight, while also disconnecting it from the rest of the world. But sadly, this place isn't like everywhere else, because where his people look for salvation, Black Adam brings them a storm, killing the living or undead indiscriminately. As he comes back to his throne, Vorenus, his advisor, asks him what he has done, when he ignores the question, mentioning that he saved Kahndaq. Somewhere else, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern continue their rescue campaign across the globe when Martian Manhunter appears. It seems he has found a good place for a 3rd sanctuary. He looks at Dinah and mentions how good the color green looks on her, before being asked by Diana what he has found. John's eyes sharpen as he tells Superman that he might have a better chance than him. Minutes later, as they approach Kahndaq, Black Adam appears. "That's far enough," he says before Superman greets him. As he asks what they want there, Diana tells him that they were hoping to find a place for survivors. "But what makes them think that there is safety within their borders?" he asks, when Wonder Woman adds that Manhunter has seen his nation. As those words leave her mouth, he looks at John directly in the eyes, mentioning that he never gave permission into his country, implying that he invaded. Superman tries to calm things down by praising how he managed to overcome this outbreak, when Adam interrupts him. "Kahndaq survived this because its ruler had the strength to do what you never could, Superman. You can tear through these monsters faster than the speed of sound. You can reduce the infected to ashes with a glance. Will you?" Superman's eyes narrow as he is asked that question, and he replies, "No, but if he is willing to open Kahndaq to the survivors, they are willing to protect his borders and people. So much power, and yet so weak." He replies before Diana adds that compassion isn't weakness. But he disagrees, mentioning that his people don't need compassion. What they need is for him to end the unliving, and that his morality never comes before their lives. "We would be stronger together, Black Adam," pushes Superman. "You're making a choice with the wisdom of a god. For the world, and for Kahndaq, think on this with the heart of a man." However, he proceeds to tell them to leave his borders and to never return to his lands. Minutes later, as he returns to his throne, he asks Vorenus what he thinks of his decision. Do people actually see him as a savior? Do they understand what he did for them? Seconds later, he decides to walk the streets as a mere mortal, mentioning that he wants to see his nation and people with different eyes. As he walks the streets, he can see the fear in their eyes. Vorenus adds that the entire country has been scared since he decided to rain death from the skies. Suddenly they stop in front of a woman who looks in distress. As he asks what happened to her, she tells them that her son has been hurt badly after their lord's attack. Black Adam tries to make excuses when he stops and proceeds to help her instead, asking if she can show him her son. "He's in his room. He's in pain," she says, opening the door. In seconds, the undead child appears. Black Adam tries to transform quickly, but it only makes things worse, because once he is scratched, his undead body is now locked into his strongest form. Now in Keystone City, Wally, accompanied by his girlfriend Linda, proceeds to destroy every electronic device in his apartment before telling her to stay put. He already barricaded the door for her. As he moves through the city at full speed, he destroys every cell phone he encounters. However, something is happening to the Speed Force. For some reason, it is trying to pull him in. Suddenly, a message comes in. "Wally, listen to me. I need you to hide," says Batman, before Flash replies, "No." Batman tries to convince him how dangerous he could become when Wally acknowledges the threat, but also adds that he is not always right, just very confident. "Sorry, I really don't have time for this conversation. See ya, Bruce. Tell Grayson to stay out of trouble." However, Batman doesn't have much time left in his hands, now looking at the deceased bodies of two of the best. At the same time, Wally realizes that even when he is the fastest, he can't be in more than 2 places at once. Therefore, he rushes at full speed to Max Mercury's house, destroying every electronic device present. He proceeds to explain what is happening throughout the city and the knowledge Batman provided him. Additionally, Jesse Quick also joins the group. The plan is to look for someplace safe to bring the survivors. However, everywhere they go, Central City, New York, and Gotham all look the same, making them realize that this Earth is probably doomed. Mercury looks at Wally right in the eyes, pitching that they might need another Earth. Therefore, they make their way to the cosmic treadmill that they used years ago to open a hole in space. Mercury designates Wally and Bart as the runners since they are the fastest, telling them, "You are going to run at top speed to open an exit from this world to another, and keep going long enough for Jesse and me to evacuate 200,000 people through it." Before they start, Wally reminds them to check every civilian for infection and electronic devices. They don't want to bring another virus to that Earth. And with those words, they begin to run at full speed, while Mercury and Jesse move people as fast as they can through the portal. However, something happens. Bart suddenly feels a hit on his right side that makes him lose balance, crashing at full speed through one of the walls. Immediately, Mercury shouts at Wally to keep running. He will get Bart. Now, all surrounded by the undead and unable to move his legs, Mercury sharpens his eyes as he moves to rescue him, while Wally, now trying to keep the portal open for 2 speedsters at the same time, feels the same pressure as Bart and loses his balance. But before he can crash, Mercury moves in, grabs him, and pushes everyone into the other world. Wally can't believe how fast Max was and starts praising him, when Jesse and Bart notice something that breaks their hearts. It seems Mercury was scratched when he tried to save him and immediately frowns at the idea. "Well, not as fast as I once was. I can feel it coming, Wally. You know what you have to do." He then proceeds to tell Wally to end him, before saying his goodbyes to Bart, whom he helped raise as his own. In seconds, the Flash opens the Speed Force and sends Max Mercury to become one with it, sending him home. Somewhere else, the Aerie have been carrying Wink for 3 days, when they finally see a massive fortress. As they get closer, Raza tells his soldiers to open fire at them when they suddenly vanish in the air. Manticore can't believe his eyes when in the blink of an eye, they appear behind them. As they move in to attack, Wink stops them, mentioning that they are travelers who are only looking for shelter. Back in the Fortress of Solitude, Wonder Woman and Cassie have recently brought more survivors. At the same time, John is looking for Damian, as if he is planning on changing his outfit, when he replies that he is not sure he is ready yet. Superboy looks at his own suit and adds, "I get it. This symbol doesn't exactly come free of burden, you know." Minutes later, Superman appears, bringing some tea for them, while asking Alfred if it is okay for him to have a word with Damian. As he gets closer, Damian asks if he shouldn't be out there with the rest, when Superman replies that John convinced him that this is important. "I thought a man who can leap tall buildings would be above nepotism," he says, when Superman smiles back. "And I thought so much cynicism couldn't fit into one 12-year-old. He then looks at the batsuit that was gifted to Damian and adds, "Bruce believed you deserved this, and your father was almost always right, often irritatingly so." "Bruce wasn't always right," he replies. "Of course not," continues Superman. "When we're young, fathers are rarely ever right, and then we grow older, and we realize what they were trying to protect us from." Suddenly, Damian looks back at him and mentions that he liked his dad. Jonathan seems so old school, so he was as genuine as he seemed. He then says he is sorry for what happened to him, and asks Clark if he is okay. This catches him by surprise, to which he smiles back. "You're a good young man, Damien, and the right choice to take up the mantle. You shouldn't be afraid, but I'm guessing it's not actually the symbol that scares you." He lowers his head for a moment and with a soft tone says that if he puts on the suit, it means that he's really gone. Bruce became a hero because he lost people he loved. He fought every day to stop that from happening to others. The world needs that more than ever, and I believe the world needs you, Batman. And with those words, he proceeds to suit up, still afraid that it may not look good on him. The three smile back at him, with Alfred mentioning that he looks just like his father. At the same time, the Airy and Wink, under the orders of Manticore, are searching for two of his men, Nightshade and Hive, when suddenly they notice something in the horizon. Black Adam is coming at full speed toward them when Wink teleports him back to her, making Adam crash into a mountain. Immediately, the Airy takes flight with her, mentioning that they have to warn Jotunheim that an army is coming. Back at the Fortress of Solitude, Cassie is waiting for John, who mentions that he has been working with his father, severing some internet cables off the coast of Ireland. When Wonder Girl tells him that she is not sure how to tell him this, but she is pretty sure that Damien stole the invisible jet. Minutes later, they finally reach him, pushing him to take it down. As he does so, John can't believe that his first act as Batman is grand theft. He replies that his mother is still in Gotham. After some discussion regarding who can stop who, John and Cassie decide to go with him. It seems Batman and Damien were following Talia al Ghul's trail before all this outbreak happened. Suddenly, Cassie shouts that something is coming their way, when in seconds, Kite Man crashes into the invisible jet and dies immediately. Finally, in Gotham, John asks why he was keeping tabs on his mother, when Damien replies that she was coming with a group of assassins to kill the mayor. Wonder Girl is unaware of all this, when Batman lets her know that his mother is Talia al Ghul, daughter of Ra's al Ghul, who is the demon's head of the League of Assassins. And this is their safe house. But how can a Gotham bank be a League of Assassins safe house, she asks. "Because my grandfather owns it," he replies before jumping into action. As he opens the vault, they see all the infected bodies lying on the floor when Superboy mentions that he can't see through the walls. "Of course not," he replies. "It wouldn't be much of a safe house for assassins if Superman could just peek in." Seconds later, Wonder Girl bends the metal, revealing the secret passage where Talia is standing, unbothered by the situation. As she gets closer, she asks what he is wearing and why this one is with him. Proudly, John adds that he is his best friend, and when she asks to corroborate, Damien responds with a firm, "Yes, he seems so innocent. We can't all be raised by assassins, Mother." "No, I suppose not." She then turns, points her sword at the bat symbol, and asks why he is wearing that, to which Damien replies that she knows why. Her face drops at the idea of Bruce being gone. When he mentions that they were on their way to see him, she can come if she likes. Minutes later, at the Batcave, they find themselves in front of their graves, when Wonder Girl asks who buried them. Talia immediately responds, "Jason Todd. I recognize the sentiment." John tries to console him, asking if he is okay, when a noise is heard. Through the shadows, Stephanie Brown appears. She was hoping to find Batman. When she sees Damien wearing the cape, she gets closer and hugs him tight, before saying that she is really sorry. "It's okay. You are wearing a mask, and I've got you. You can say goodbye." This brings Damien to tears, before Talia raises an eyebrow, mentioning that his father made him soft. In seconds, this infuriates Superboy and Wonder Girl, who shout that she is supposed to be a symbol of peace, but she is seriously considering breaking his legs. However, Damien stops them. "My mother loved Bruce. She's just trying to start a fight. There's nothing left here. We should get back to the fortress." But as he says those words, Stephanie suddenly begins to change in front of them. She tells Damien to wait. If he is really Batman, he will need what Bruce always needed. So he isn't reduced to a muscled bag of repressed feelings in Kevlar. He will need a Robin. Meanwhile, in Jotunheim, Wink is advising Manticore and Raza that an army of undead is on their way, with Black Adam at their head. She then tells them that they may need heroes to withstand this attack, when Airy volunteers to fly through the Aegean Sea as a way to find the island of Themyscira. And with that mission in mind, he takes flight at full speed, breaking the sound barrier through the Mediterranean Sea. At the same time, with the army of undead at their doorstep, Manticore and Raza redirect any civilians that can hold a weapon, when Wink tells him that she has a plan to buy them time. But they will need to bring all of Black Adam's attention to them. As they do so, Wink teleports behind his back just seconds before they hit the fortress and teleports him within the mountain. Manticore then asks her if Adam can survive that, when she replies that she has no idea, before the mountain starts shaking, answering their question. At that same time, Aerie, with the help of some seagulls, is pointed in the right direction to the Amazonian's lands when Wonder Woman appears, asking if she can help him. "I hope so. You and everyone you can reach," he replies. Back in Jotunheim, the place is already surrounded by the undead, when Nightshade, who is among the army, uses her shadow teleportation, creating an opening that connects directly to the fortress. As they see Manticore lose himself to the equation, another problem occurs. Black Adam cracks the mountain open, leaving the ones inside ready to die. However, at full speed, Wonder Woman appears and holds the structure down, preventing it from falling. But as she does so, this leaves her defenseless for any attack, to which Black Adam appears, looking at her. Without wasting any more time, he moves in, aiming at her. Diana is trying to hold as much as she can, whispering Hades's name. Suddenly, a torrent of energy hits him right in the back, sending him crashing through the undead army. Cyborg, accompanied by Superman, Manhunter, and Green Lantern, asks her if she is okay when Diana looks back at him, adding that she is holding a fortress and could do with a little help. Immediately, Dinah takes over with her construct when Superman mentions that they are attacking people in the lower levels. Manhunter lets him know that the rest of the team is almost there to take care of those inside, while the three of them should focus on Black Adam. Elsewhere, Raza is holding as much as he can when he decides to close the door behind him as a means to sacrifice himself for the others. However, Wink has other plans and teleports him into safety, mentioning that noble sacrifices are severely overrated if there's another option. Seconds later, he commands all soldiers to point their guns and to fire at everything that comes through that door. Suddenly, an explosion is heard behind them, and through the whole of the impact, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, and Wonder Woman appear. Carter smiles at Kendra and asks her if she is ready to take out a horde of undead before the two jump into battle. Finally, with their help, the team begins to see an end to all this, pushing every undead into the shadow portal from where they came. However, they make a huge mistake. As the portal is beginning to close, Manticore reaches out and grabs Carter by the wings, bringing him into Nightshade's realm, where he is now surrounded by death itself. Meanwhile, Dinah takes the fortress with her as a means to bring it to Themyscira, while Cyborg, Manhunter, and Superman continue to keep Black Adam at bay. Suddenly, the attack stops. Victor asks what he is doing, when Superman adds that the anti-life equation knows it is outnumbered. Seconds later, Aerie appears, afraid of what could have happened, when Superman tells him that Wink is inside. As he reaches her, he can see she is safe, but not everyone is okay. Kendra has just lost a part of her. A day later, Black Adam is still in the same place waiting, when Hawkman appears, now turned, but more impressive, he has brought a bigger army. At that same time, Nightshade opens her shadow teleportation again and brings everyone inside, now marching through the realm of night as a means to cross the sea. Back at the Fortress of Solitude, Superman is telling Lois how horrible everything went, adding that Kahndaq just fell and the entire nation was reduced to monsters. "Why didn't Black Adam just let us help?" he asks. She tells him that some people are beyond their own pride. They believe assistance is a sign of weakness, when the opposite is true. Asking for help takes bravery. It takes strength. Seconds later, as they share a kiss, Olsen suddenly appears, shouting, "Lois, Superman, what would Mr. Kent say?" The two, embarrassed, can't form words when Jimmy laughs at them. "I'm just messing with you. I always knew who you are." Superman can't believe it when Olsen mentions that he has taken hundreds of photos of him, staring at him every day while working. Also, every bored photographer has drawn glasses on their photos. Clark tries to ask him why he didn't say anything, when he replies that he has a world to worry about, and he didn't want to add to that. Anyways, Cyborg wants to show us something, he says before leaving. Now, as they finally manage to establish two different sanctuaries, the plan to create the arcs finally begins. Aerie and Wink are not sure about this, mentioning that the anti-life equation may take control of them, or worse, since they are Luthor satellites, they may even shoot lasers or something. Lex frowns at the comment and mentions that these ones in particular run on a closed network, and don't shoot lasers. Additionally, he and Cyborg estimate that the undead are drawn by life, which leads them to identify larger concentrations of the anti-living. Barry and Wallace, who are standing on the side, add that it could mean that in every cluster there could be survivors at the heart of it. Therefore, they will need to start a global rescue operation. Wonder Woman and Green Lantern communicate to everyone that the two sanctuaries have agreed to take refugees, when Superman orders that they will start today. However, before he can continue with the plan, Talia interrupts him, asking if he really wants to place what's left of the human race in two locations. She then turns abruptly, looking back at Damian. "I am sorry. Am I embarrassing you in front of all these people in capes and skin-tight lycra? Would you prefer I kept my mouth closed while these brilliant heroes create convenient, all-you-can-kill buffets?" As she continues telling them that they have all these ridiculous superpowers, they should stop tiptoeing around the undead and just get into the attack. To which Lex Luthor also agrees with such a statement, adding that it would be ridiculous to prioritize the dead over the living. Now, facing Superman, Talia continues by saying that he can disintegrate these monsters by just looking at them. He should put his damn moral code aside, fly out there, and wipe them out from the fucking sky. When Lois chimes in, asking her to back off, they are not going to throw billions of lives away. She then switches her sight to Wonder Woman, asking her to talk to him. She's a warrior nonetheless. When Diana mentions that of all the times she has fought beside Superman, he has never taken a life, and they have won every battle together. Still, Cyborg maintains his position, believing that they are not alive anymore when Superman says sorry to everyone. He knows that it may seem naive or even stubborn, but he will never give up on these people. They are supposed to be better than that. However, Talia shouts desperately that he is just as bad as Batman was when Superman, all proud of himself, thanks her for her comment. Now, after all the discussion is over, Victor warns everyone that they should first send a team to Central City, since something strange is happening there. At that same time, Police Chief David Singh is barricading himself with Pied Piper, who for a strange reason is able to hypnotize the undead whenever he plays his flute, mentioning that he can't control them, just attract them. David looks at his pistol, adding that he has 2 bullets left for them, when Hartley replies if that is supposed to be comforting. Also, why do you only have 2 bullets? Fill the damn gun if you're going to be morbidly practical. I don't want to screw up, shoot my ear off, and then be attacked by the undead. Seconds later, they hear how the anti-living are grouping in high numbers outside the apartment. When David asks what they should do, Piper replies that he wants to fight beside him. Suddenly they hear their names being called, when through one of the walls, a hand phases through. David shoots immediately when Manhunter appears, mentioning that they will be all right. As he brings them outside, Superman and Diana ask why all these undead are gathered in this specific place, to which Piper replies, "Because of me," and this, showing his flute. Somewhere else, 2 civilians are having a discussion regarding one of them using his phone, when the man argues that it would be stupid if a virus actually came from their devices, when he suddenly pulls out a gun, shouting to stop telling him what to do. In seconds, Batman appears and holds his arm, mentioning that they are fighting the undead. They don't have time to fight ignorance too. Unexpectedly, the man shows Damian his phone, asking if he is scared of that, when a kick takes it from his hand before he destroys it. Seconds later, Talia appears with sword in hand, asking Damian to move aside. She is about to behead him for trying to show his phone. At the same time, Atom Smasher has brought more refugees from all over North and South America, where Dinah takes them and redirects them to Poison Ivy's sanctuary. Suddenly, an explosion is heard in the proximity when Black Manta appears, incapacitated. It seems he was attacked by the undead. Immediately, Superboy brings him to safety. Cassie tries to see if he is still alive when a torrent from his optic blast hits Wonder Girl in the face. Luckily, this seems ineffective on her, shouting, "Seriously? You really want to make more trouble? We kind of have enough of that." Talia jumps immediately, mentioning that at least she will be beheading this one, when John stops her. "Your compassion goes too far," she says to Superboy. "I've dealt with Black Manta before. David Hyde is ruthless, sadistic, and entirely out for himself. He will never join your side." As he takes his leave, Robin and Superboy try to convince him, with John telling him that he doesn't have to face what is out there alone. They could use him here. As those words leave Superboy's mouth, Atom Smasher turns to look at the shadow portal that has just appeared on the coast. In seconds, the army of the anti-living, commanded by Black Adam, emerges from it. John and Black Manta don't waste time and begin their attack. Atom Smasher grabs one of the boats and begins to swing at all the undead in his path, crushing them with his gigantic feet. However, that size works against him, with Black Adam moving in and infecting him with a single strike, adding a gigantic undead to his ranks. Immediately, the refugees that haven't evacuated yet rush through the town, trying to escape the monsters that are now chasing them. Hawkman, Atom Smasher, and Black Adam move in, while the heroes form a standing point to hold them. Batman shouts at everyone to ignore Smasher and focus on Black Adam, since he is their biggest threat, when Superboy calls upon Blue Beetle and Wonder Girl. Talia shouts at Black Manta to keep Atom at bay, while Robin continues evacuating the survivors. She then proceeds to tell Damian that they should get on the boat, when he ignores her order, adding that he is not running away. Suddenly, Stephanie shouts to look out before seeing a gigantic punch coming their way. She moves in and takes both of them out of the way when John and Cassie appear and stop him. They then proceed to lift him when a second hand is coming their way, smashing them shut. John shouts for Cassie to keep flying, and as they bring Atom high enough, they proceed to let him go, crashing into the sea. This just makes things worse, creating a wave that is coming their way, taking both the living and the anti-living with it. Seconds later, Black Adam punches Blue Beetle away. It seems he has an indiscriminate plan to kill them all. Seeing everyone surrounded by water, he charges his electrical strike. Superboy moves in, blocking it, when a spark hits Jimmy Olsen in the left eye, causing him to lose part of his sight. Unable to speak clearly, he tries to warn John before Black Adam appears and grabs him by the neck, ready to finish him. Batman and Wonder Girl try to hold him back, preventing the strike, but he is outmatched and pushes them back. Desperately, John screams with his last breath, calling for his dad, when at full speed, Superman appears, punching Black Adam through the sea. He then decides to blow away every undead in his sight, while asking telepathically to Manhunter to please contact all the help he can get to hold them off, while they finish the evacuation. Manhunter contacts those in the proximity and redirects them to the battlefield. Immediately, they split between different tasks, with Green Lantern preventing the dead from spreading, while Flash and Kid Flash board everyone onto the boats as fast as they can. As Superman is bringing Olsen to a safe place, Manhunter asks him what happened to Adam, when he replies that he hit him hard. It should take a while for him to get back up. Talia shouts at everyone to get aboard when Steph looks at Black Manta, asking him if he is still determined to face the apocalypse on his own, or would he consider a lift out of here. However, Robin notices a terrifying detail on his right side. When she tries to warn Damian, sadly, Black Manta turns back immediately and hits her with his optic blast, taking one of the boats as well. Superman shouts at everyone to move, while trying to carry as many civilians as he can. Manhunter, who was caught by surprise, is now surrounded by the one thing he fears most: fire. He tries to call for support, but in the blink of an eye, Black Adam appears and cuts him right in the stomach. As he falls to the water, he is now phasing through the bottom of the sea, making his friends unable to read him or find him. Out of rage, Wonder Woman and Superman move in and hit Black Adam with extreme force, forcing him to stay back while they carry on with the evacuation. Sadly, another loss comes shortly after. It seems Stephanie Brown perished to Black Manta's attack. Damian is still holding her when Talia and Wonder Girl tell him that it is time to go, before carrying them back to the boats. Hours later at the Gotham Garden, he stands in front of her deceased body, calm, when Cassie appears to console him, as she asks if he wants to tell her about Steph. Damian frowns for a second, and then erratically shouts that she drove him crazy. She was always trying to make fun in the most inappropriate situations and refused to take him seriously. "Well, of course she did," replies Cassie. "That's what sisters are supposed to do." Seconds later, Talia appears, calling for him, when Damian tells her to please, just once, don't push it. However, she comes for another reason. She mentions that there is a Lazarus pit, but it can only be used once. She was planning to use it for his father, but knowing how Batman died, she knows he might return corrupted. "Can you bring Steph back?" asks Cassie, with hope in her eyes. Talia lowers her sight, replying that it might work, but there is no guarantee she comes back the same. "Damian, the only way your grandfather has ever been able to show he cares is by hurting anyone who crossed me," continues Talia. "I recognize that shortcoming in myself, and I'd like to do this for you." He then asks if he can come with her, when she refuses, mentioning that she can move more freely by herself. And nonetheless, Batman is needed here. The anti-life army will be here soon. Inevitably, the undead are just hours away from the garden when Cyborg mentions that at this current pace, they will be there by sunrise. It's very simple, adds Lex Luthor. Tomorrow you work together to destroy Black Adam, and when the army gets to the garden walls, Green Lantern drops a shield and we drop a whole lot of bombs on their side. However, Superman rejects that option. He's not about to kill millions of people without knowing if they can be saved. We do know they can't be saved. Cyborg knows I know. We've been over this. They're dead. You're stubbornly defending corpses. I won't be part of this, says Superman. Then there's a good chance everyone will die, replies Luthor. Seconds later, he just walks away, frustrated. He can't understand how someone so powerful can be so weak, before shouting that he is not staying for the inevitable. However, Olsen reaches him before he leaves, explaining that the man he has spent years trying to hurt is his best friend. Luthor, annoyed, replies that Superman is not a man, before Olsen pushes back. So it must drive you crazy that he's so much more human than you. Lex raises an eyebrow, looking back at him while Jimmy continues. I get that he seems alien to you. You've spent your whole life lying and cheating to gain power. Whereas Superman has all this power, and he chose to be a reporter, a real one. Every moment he wasn't selflessly saving others, he chose to spend telling the truth. Do you have a point or just cutting insight? Replies Lex, when Olsen reminds him that he is supposed to be the smartest person in the world. As he tries to say that there is no time, Jimmy asks him to prove it, to think of a way to win tomorrow, a way where they don't destroy a million people, to find time. This inspires curiosity in Lex, who proceeds to approach Kid Flash, asking for his assistance. Wallace rejects him at first, mentioning that he is still bringing survivors to the garden. When Luthor tells him that there is a good chance none of the people he saved today will be alive by tomorrow, Kid Flash stops and looks back at him, asking what he needs from him, when he replies, time. Immediately, he connects Lex Luthor to the Speed Force for 6 minutes straight. As he finishes, Wallace asks if he cares to share it, when Lex replies, absolutely not. You can return to your rescue. They may not be futile after all. Now alone, Lex begins to analyze the information that he obtained, mentioning that as a very smart man, he has run every possible scenario over and over, and he knows what will happen tomorrow. It's going to be a bloodbath. But I know how the anti-life army is going to access the garden. There's going to be a moment, a single moment, for you, he says, now looking at Pied Piper. He then proceeds to tell him not to say anything to the League, because they will never go through with this plan. Minutes later, he meets Wink and proceeds to tell her what her part in this plan is, before flying out, ready to put his last piece in place. Finally, he reaches Wonder Woman, who is still helping with the evacuation. She proceeds to tell the kids to jump on his suit, when, frustrated, he replies that his suit is worth $3 billion. As they proceed to take the refugees to the sanctuary, Wonder Woman asks him what he wants, when he replies that he might know a way to beat Black Adam, but he needs something from her. However, this is not a matter that can be spoken about in front of children. Minutes later, they find themselves restraining one of the undead, when Diana asks him how he knows they were going to be able to communicate, before reminding her that this is the only way. And if it works, she will have to do what Superman can't. She will have to end Black Adam. As they fly back to the sanctuary, Diana asks how many more will die for his plan to work, when he replies, just 2. 2 sacrifices to potentially save the entire human race. And as she asks for their names, Luthor shuts her down. She might do something stupid and he can't risk it. Somewhere else, Jimmy Olsen is having a conversation with Superman, mentioning that there should be a record of all this, of the heroes and their sacrifices. He will never forget what he was saved from, but he wants everyone to remember who were the ones who fought against the undead, since tomorrow could be their last day. Superman smiles back at him for a second and says, I'm not so sure, Jimmy. I think we have some hope. It sounded like you played Lex Luthor perfectly. Hours after Black Adam and the anti-life army arrive at Gotham Garden, he proceeds to take aim at the magical barrier and lunges at it, breaching their defenses in seconds. However, this was all part of the plan, with Superman giving the order to restrain him. They move quickly, grabbing him by his arms and slamming him into the ground, while Green Lantern keeps a construct around him. In seconds, Black Adam erupts furiously, pushing them apart. As he punches Superman, Cassie and John, who are observing the fight, move in and grab him by the arm, preventing him from reacting. Superman and Wonder Woman also follow, with Dinah pushing him back in place. Somewhere else, the fight intensifies, with Cyborg shouting to get ready to defend the walls, when all of a sudden, Lex Luthor mentions that they are not coming for the wall. As he hands Wink a gun, the group tries to ask him what he is planning, but he ignores the questions. Suddenly, Batman points out that something strange is happening when Nightshade opens her shadow portal. Green Arrow has a clean shot from his position, but out of nowhere, Luthor intervenes and shoots his bow. Ollie can't understand what is happening. When Lex looks back at Piper as he says his goodbye, David asks, "What is he talking about?" Wink holds Piper's shoulder before looking back at Aerie and says she loves him, before teleporting in front of him. Now furious, they are looking for answers, when Batman pressures Luthor to answer them. He looks sideways at Damian, adding, "I probably saved us all. You're welcome." Now, Wink and Piper appear in the Nightshade realm, from where the undead first appeared. Immediately, Hartley starts to play his flute, catching every anti-living soldier's attention. The monsters move fast, trying to grab them, but every time they get closer, Wink teleports a little bit forward. Outside, Lex reports that almost a tenth of the army has already crossed over, when Wink replies that it is not enough. Aerie appears all of a sudden, asking if he is talking to her. Did he seriously send them into that? As Wink asks for a report, Luthor shouts to keep Piper playing, to keep attracting Nightshade to them. They don't get to die until he says so. Little by little, as the undead get closer, Wink keeps teleporting them back, when Lex finally mentions that the last one just entered the realm. Wink immediately takes position, adding that it is time, but she has an issue. How the hell will they manage to find Nightshade among millions of undead? Through the portal, Aerie also appears, flying towards them, when she shouts at him, "What is he doing here?" This is a one-way trip, because as soon as Nightshade appears, the doorway to this land closes. Aerie can't believe that she left. If she is not coming back, then neither is he, now looking at the swarm of undead. As he asks what the plan is, Wink explains that they need Nightshade to close the portal behind them, and without hesitation, Aerie takes flight. Back on the surface, the team is holding Black Adam, while Diana forces the lasso of truth on him. As she gets closer, she whispers to him to say the word, to say Shazam. She then pushes forward, shouting, "The lasso of truth compels you. Say it." In the blink of an eye, a torrent of energy pushes everyone apart, with Black Adam now immortal. Diana pushes forward, mentioning that they are nimbler than death, more resilient than a virus, and though the human race will survive this, some of them may fall, but not everyone. And not today. And with those words in place, Superman activates his heat vision and proceeds to sever Black Adam's vocal cords, preventing him from ever calling upon his powers. Back in the realm, Aerie has finally found Nightshade and brings her to them. As Wink takes aim to finish it all, a sudden strike catches their attention. From the distance, Black Manta has destroyed Aerie's wings and the pistol. As they try to teleport away, Piper stops playing his flute and says that they are staying here. He is done playing, and in a swift move, impales Nightshade right in the eyes. From the outside, Lex Luthor shouts that they did it. The portal is closing with the army trapped inside. David immediately asks where Piper is. What was Lex's plan? When he looks back at him, telling him that he should be proud of Hartley. He is the one who chose to do it. Suddenly the team turns back as they reappear in front of them, to which David can't believe it, rushing to him for a kiss. Minutes later, Superman hovers in the air, facing everyone present when he says, "I wanted to speak with you. All of you. I know you're all scared. I know how much you've lost. The world has changed, but you're still here. We're still here. I don't know what comes tomorrow, but I know this. If we are together, we can overcome anything. I believe in all of you. I believe in us. We will overcome this virus. Until then, we will care for each other and keep each other safe. This is not the end of the world. While we still breathe, while we still fight, while we still resist, there is always hope." After the Justice League has suffered major losses to the equation, the world has moved on, now with John Constantine sitting alone in the Oblivion Bar, remembering those who perished. As he holds a glass of hard liquor, he seems to be having a conversation with his best mate, Chaz, mentioning that he tried to look up for his ashes, but it's not like it's easy to tell one from another, before saying cheers to his memory. Seconds later, Zatanna appears and tells him that the world is already depressing enough for him to be drinking alone, when he looks back at her with sadness. "I am not alone, Z. I am never alone. he says before looking at the ghosts of all those who sacrificed themselves for something they believed in. However, different from them, John was never big on sacrifices. Not like Cyborg, who stood behind as millions evacuated Earth, but sadly, he missed something. Something that could change all the guilt his head was full of. But now the universe has turned its back on Earth, and only one man knew the truth. Now, 5 years in the future, Cyborg's head, alone in the mug, has been emitting a strange sound. A sound that has been crying for help all along. A sound that may one day reach Earth too. In this new world, John Kent, now Superman, is moving at full speed trying to prevent an invasion with the help of his old friends, now fully grown. Cassie, now recognized as Wonder Woman, and Damian Wayne as Batman, are moving through the corridors to the Royal Control Room, taking down everyone in their path. Through the communicator, Superman reminds him to be gentle with them. He can hear the sound of his boots on their faces. When he replies, "Stupid super hearing," Batman keeps pushing as more enemies appear, before opening a hole that brings him to the main chamber, where who seems to be their leader shouts at him, "You little thing, you have not won this war." Batman exhales for a second, replying, "Oh, please. If we wanted to, we could have wiped out your fleet in seconds. We took our time because we were trying extra hard not to accidentally squash you. This isn't a war. It's not even a fight." These words infuriate the Emperor, ready to attack, when Superman appears at full speed, stopping him. He then tells him to please hold. They might be in a misunderstanding, one that they can solve with words, so he would like for him to meet their leader. Back on the planet, Lois Lane greets the Emperor before expressing her understanding that, by them inhabiting this planet, this has caused concern for him, since they are sharing the same solar system. Suddenly, Batman receives a message from Alfred, asking if he is busy at this moment, when Damian replies that they are trying to close an intergalactic negotiation. But as he asks what he needs, Alfred replies that for some reason his briefcase is beeping, and it appears to be in Morse code. Hours later, at the new Hall of Justice, Batman reunites every hero before telling them that what they are hearing is the tracker his father placed in Cyborg years ago. Ollie immediately responds that it may just be beeping, when Damian replies that the Morse code stands for J and L. In other words, Cyborg is calling for the Justice League. Green Arrow, unsure about all this, adds, "Maybe it's a trick. Maybe he's infected, and the anti-life virus is literally trying to lure them back to Earth to finish them off. We have things good here. Hardly anything is trying to kill us." John disagrees with the statement, mentioning that they just fought a war. "That was hardly a war," replies Batman, when Ollie says that regardless of what it was, he votes they stay, to which Dinah also agrees. Minutes later, Lois knows immediately what John's answer will be, when he tries to comfort his mother by telling her that the Green Lantern will be back soon, able to protect this planet. As she asks of the risk, and why he doesn't think of it, he replies that a friend is calling for them. Lois gets closer, reminding him to come back safe. They already lost enough, she says, before calling him Superman. However, John is still not comfortable with that name. Somewhere else, Ollie also reminds Dinah of those who have perished, so going back is unbelievably stupid when she reminds him that he voted yes. "You think I was going to keep my hand down when all the kids had theirs up?" he replies. She then tells him to stay here. They will be back before he knows it when Ollie turns back, asking if she just tried to bench him. "Oh, please," he says. "If you insist on doing this, do you honestly think I'd be anywhere but next to you? Because if so, you're an idiot." He then shouts proudly how formidable he is. I mean, I was nonetheless the man who killed the King of the Sea, who was also controlling the Kraken. And sure, you have the magic ring that can do almost anything, on top of the screaming. And then there is the sword that can kill a god, he says with sarcasm. When Dinah asks him directly if it's the sword that he wants, at first he denies it when she kneels before him, mocking him. "But I have so many incredible abilities," she says. "I barely have room to hold the magic sword that can kill a god." As he poses with it for a second, he then gets closer to Dinah, promising that they are coming back before sharing a kiss. Minutes later, Green Lantern and Superman approach Kilowog, who tells them to be careful back at home. He doesn't want to be the one to destroy them. As they ask what he is guarding, he replies that they are rotating turns to watch over his father. John turns immediately, now looking at the sad image of Clark still consuming the sun. Kilowog mentions that little by little the Earth is getting colder, when a sudden alarm catches his attention. Something is moving at full speed toward their direction. direction. As they get into position, the two form a construct to stop whatever is coming, but it is ineffective. Through the shield, Crypto appears, going directly at John, who is happy to see him. Kilowog points immediately, asking if he knows this creature, when Superman replies that he is family, to which Batman also smiles, before mentioning if they can go back to the distress signal. Now back on Earth, the team is exploring the proximity when Dinah communicates that she found it. She tries to call for him, but there is no answer. Wonder Woman, who is next to them, offers her lasso of truth as a means to make him speak. He then says a few words, unable to put together a sentence. When Superman mentions that he called for help, he called for the Justice League, and so they came. However, Hawkgirl, who is guarding the skies, alerts them that they have approximately 10 minutes before the undead reach them. Ollie hates this kind of fight and tells the group that it is better to move somewhere else. Green Lantern agrees with him, adding that they should head for Ivy's sanctuary, when Crypto suddenly changes his posture, now aggressively looking into the distance. In seconds, Cyborg's words begin to make sense when he shouts that she is always here. They better run. The ring also sends a proximity alert when the ship Batman was piloting is suddenly hit. Superman moves in, preventing it from crashing, when the rest of it explodes once it hits the dirt. Unable to see anything, Ollie calls for Dinah, when in a blink Wonder Woman appears and without hesitation infects him. Immediately Ollie's eyes meet Dinah's, and as he perishes to the equation, he says sorry to her. Green Lantern loses all control, shouting in desperation, before using her canary cry, pushing Diana away from him. However, Ollie's time has come. Dinah passes before him at full speed, with tears in her eyes, before Hawkgirl throws her mace directly at Diana's face. This gives time for Green Lantern to create a construct that slams her to the floor. However, while all this fighting is happening, Cyborg has been whispering a message all along. Wonder Woman doesn't understand a word when Superman replies that he does, trying to prevent Dinah from continuing. But it is all too late. Green Lantern, unable to hear orders from anyone, impales Diana, but in the process takes John's right shoulder. As she sees her suffering, Superman tries to look back at her and with little to no time whispers that there's a cure. Somewhere else, Roy Harper is scouting the area when he advises that another horde is on their way, as he shouts to everyone to get inside the bunker and start barricading. Gracie, a little girl, asks him if the monsters are going to get them before he tries to comfort her. Suddenly, something catches his eye, before fire appears and throws a torrent of energy at him, burning him in seconds. As the tears from Gracie begin to fall, a portal opens behind her, and from it, John Constantine appears, accompanied by Red Hood, Zatanna, Blue Devil, Ravager, Detective Chimp, and Ragman. Immediately, they get into position and take down as many undead as they can when John tells Zatanna to take care of the one flying. They will manage the rest. She moves in and taunts her, trying to catch her attention. As the enemy bites, Zatanna waits a few seconds before using a spell that extinguishes all flames from her, making her crash into one of the buildings. John tries to calm everyone before Gracie gets closer, asking where they came from and who he is. However, as soon as he is about to answer, Swamp Thing appears behind him, scaring the shit out of him. "John Constantine, I need to talk to you about a garden," he says. "Look, I'm sure you have something fascinating to say about plants, mate, but I'm kind of in the middle of fighting the undead here. Can we maybe wait on the botany?" Swamp Thing frowns at the comment before sprouting hundreds of vines from the ground, impaling every undead present. John just looks at the effectiveness of such an attack, before mentioning that he should have opened with that. For a second, John believes that Swamp Thing is talking about the Gotham Garden, when he replies that there is another, on the other side of the world, in Australia. His eyes sharpen after hearing that, adding, "I'm not going to Australia, mate. That place was dangerous before the undead." As he continues making excuses for why he doesn't want to go, Swamp Thing explodes at him, shouting, "Shut the fuck up." This freezes everyone present, unable to believe that for the first time, he curses. John takes a puff before replying that he is kind of proud of that. As he begins to tell him that for some reason, he has been cut off from that garden, and all he can hear is the screaming. No longer able to ignore it, John tells him to do what he has to do and go. However, Swamp Thing adds that there are humans inside. If he really wants them to survive, he should come with him. Immediately, he designates Jason and Rose to guide the survivors to Poison Ivy's sanctuary. Minutes later, as they reach the entrance, Harley Quinn greets them before noticing that there are people missing, to which Ravager tells her that they just went to Australia. At the same time, Ivy senses something coming their way and advises Nelson and Mary. As the two transform, they take flight to intercept whatever is coming their way, but as soon as they get closer, they see Wonder Woman holding Superman. Immediately they accept to help. When Dr. Fate mentions that his wounds are beyond medicine, it requires magic. At the same time, the other part of the group just lands in the sanctuary when Damian finally sees Jason, unable to believe he is still alive. As he sees him wearing the batsuit, Damian mentions that his father wanted him to have it, asking if he is okay with it. Jason gets closer to him and with a smile says, "Your father made a lot of very bad decisions. This is not one of them," before hugging him tight. However, something else is happening. As Dinah tries to bring Ollie, who is infected, with them, Ivy stops her, mentioning that they have kept the anti-life equation outside for years. Did she really think they were just going to let her walk in here with that? Dinah holds her position, since she is not about to leave him behind, when Ivy replies, "Then you leave here with him. You fend for yourself," before aiming her vines at her, shouting that she will not risk the lives in here for her need to cling to a corpse. Dinah doesn't waste time and takes flight, before Ivy keeps trying to make her understand that he is gone. However, Cyborg's head, who is being carried by Hawkgirl, replies that he is not gone. Harley gets closer, before the head replies the same. As she hears this, her eyes widen, while the rest just realize their biggest mistake. They have been killing every carrier of the anti-life equation for the last 5 years, including family and friends. The rest can only hide their faces in their masks, unable to face each other after hearing such a revelation. Batman chimes in, telling them that there was no way of knowing, before Ravager asks what the cure is. Cyborg explains that before everyone left on the Arks, he had a conversation with the anti-life equation, where it said that the cure was in him. Dr. Fate looks back at him, adding that they have access to magic and science, and now they have hope, so they will find a cure. From the distance, Batman sees Cassie walking away, before asking if she is okay, when she breaks into tears, mentioning that she can't believe Wonder Woman is gone, to lose Diana twice like this. Damian tries to console her, telling her that whatever she needs, he is here for her, before kissing her. Now in Australia, the image of a bunker surrounded by flames is all the heroes can see, when Ragman mentions that his cloak feels the souls of those inside. Many are wicked, while others are innocent. Zatanna asks Blue Devil if he can extinguish the fire, when he replies that it is hellfire. John immediately asks her to bring them to the other side to create a gap, but as she does so, the anti-living feel their presence. Ragman, looking at the blood moat, mentions that for some reason it looks like it's shifting, when Detective Chimp's deduction activates, shouting that it's not blood, it's Plastic Man. In seconds, the monstrous figure lunges at them, taking Ragman first. Zatanna tries to cast a spell, but without hesitation, Plastic Man impales her. Blue Devil cuts the veins immediately. However, Plastic Man wastes no time, taking him instead, exploding his eyes while forcing his brain matter out. And as the rest of the team falls to their demise, 3 silhouettes appear in the distance. Minutes later, Bobo checks on her before they find themselves in what looks like a barrier of plants provided by Swamp Thing. As she asks what happened, John replies that her lungs were filled with Plastic Man's remains. She then asks how she is alive, when Detective Chimp tells her that Blue Devil saved her, but perished the same as Ragman. Outside, Plastic Man is still trying to devour them whole, when the team mentions that they have an idea. Right now they are next to a wall of hellfire, and one thing is certain, that thing can burn through anything. Zatanna puts on her hat, immediately catching their intentions, and tells Swamp Thing to call off the green. As he does so, she comes out, facing Plastic Man directly, and without wasting time, casts a spell that binds the hellfire to her will, and proceeds to blaze the monstrous figure to nothing. As they reach land, John grabs Ragman's cloak, while Bobo feels responsible for Blue Devil's death, since he did propose to turn back. Minutes later, John asks them to move this conversation away from here, when Detective Chimp once again notices that something is off, shouting for everyone to get down. In seconds, through the bunker, a torrent of bullets begins to shoot indiscriminately, to which Swamp Thing pays no attention. As John tries to see who is responsible, the unmistakable tone of the Penguin is heard. "If you are planning on coming in, this is your window, or you can just stay lying in the dirt and die. I really don't care." Back in the sanctuary, Damian is fixing Superman's cloak when a voice chimes in. "I'm not gonna lie, I never imagined Batman sewing." Damian keeps working as he replies that his father was too dependent on Alfred, and honestly, it was a little embarrassing. Now face to face, Gordon greets him, mentioning that it is good to have Batman back, when Damian smiles at the gesture and proceeds to hug him. Jim tells him that his father wasn't a hugger when he replies that he remembers, but he is not as emotionally stunted. They are just lucky Scarecrow never realized that Bruce's greatest fear was intimacy. Seconds later, Dr. Fate appears and tells Damian that Superman has healed successfully. Now in the Tower of Fate, Krypto is enthusiastically licking John's face when Mary tells him that he hasn't left his side since he got there. As Superman mentions that she looks familiar, Mary calls upon her powers. John is happy to see that she made it when she lowers her sight, adding that some didn't. After asking where he is, she gives him a rundown of actions. He got stabbed by none other than a magical kryptonite sword. It was really messy, but thanks to Dr. Fate, they were able to patch him back together. Back in Australia, the team walks the corridor, where they see everyone is militarized. Immediately, Max Lord adds that these soldiers are quite civilized, and their families are employed as cleaning and cooking staff, when Zatanna points out that he seems pretty proud of their slaves. John can't believe they managed to keep the same class system in place through an apocalypse, when Bobo adds that this is like the Garden of Eden, but everyone here is a snake. Swamp Thing, who has been quiet, observes one of the fruits, noticing how the green suffering is even louder in here. Out of nowhere, Jason Blood appears and asks John that if they could have a word in private. As they enter one of the rooms, he turns himself into Etrigan, when John, frustrated, says, "Before we start, could we please skip the fucking rhyming? I just lost 2 friends and I'm not in the mood for amateur poetry hour." Etrigan tells him that hell isn't happy about what is happening, since the souls are being locked inside the anti-living. Therefore, Trigon is beyond annoyed, so he is coming to wipe it all away. Seconds later, the sounds of bullets catch their attention, and as they run toward that direction, they see Swamp Thing fighting the soldiers from the bunker. Immediately, John asks what is happening, when Zatanna mentions that it seems they have imprisoned the Floronic Man, torturing and forcing him to produce for them. Constantine tries to calm him down, explaining that some people don't think of the green as he does. However, Max Lord's tone just makes him even more furious, telling him to listen to his superior before Swamp Thing replies that he better release Floronic Man and the green. "I don't take orders from a walking houseplant," he shouts, when in the blink of an eye, Holland snaps his head off. John knows that shit is about to go down when Bobo notices Professor Ivo has appeared, bringing Amazo as their fighter. He proceeds to burn Swamp Thing to ashes before Zatanna holds him in place. However, 4 more clones appear. Without wasting any more time, he opens a portal. Swamp Thing also grows back, shouting that they are abusing, torturing. John's eyes narrow looking at them, and he says to Holland, "We'll come back with a plan and fuck them up, I promise. But for now, we go home." Stag knows that they will be back, when the Penguin replies that it doesn't matter. They are almost ready, and soon enough, they will take the world back. Back in Ivy's sanctuary, the team is trying to understand how this cure could work, when Cyborg says that he has searched everywhere within himself and has found nothing. Superman still considers this a sign of hope. If there is a cure, they can save them all. Batman chimes in, mentioning that if there is an anti-life equation, it stands to reason there must also be a life equation. When Bobo adds that the other half was held by Darkseid himself, the knowledge of the new gods is what they might need. Constantine, who is listening to the conversation, suddenly interrupts. "Look, I know what's needed, but it means doing something I really didn't want to do, bothering someone who would prefer to stay unbothered." He then asks Cassie for her lasso of truth, while also telling Bobo that he'll need his help. To Superman, "Nothing yet, but it's better for him to save everything for the big hit." Minutes later, they find themselves in the outskirts of Gotham approaching a cabin when someone opens the door and asks directly how they found him. John just replies, "World's greatest detective," before Bobo says hi to him. From the shadows, someone who was believed to be dead appears, Mr. Miracle. He walks past both of them, asking what they want, when John replies that he needs his help. He frowns at the request, saying, "That didn't work out so well last time," to which Constantine replies that there may be a way to save her. However, Miracle turns back aggressively, mentioning that whatever con job he is trying to pull, he won't be part of it, since he is a walking bag of lies. Look, that would be her hurtful if it wasn't so accurate, but I promise I'm telling the truth, he says before lending him the lasso of truth. As it compels him, his eyes widen after hearing the answer. Bobo tells him that the cure is within Cyborg, but they can't get to it. They might need some Apokoliptian knowledge. In other words, they need Mr. Miracle's mother box. He proceeds to ask what they need from him. When John takes a puff looking down, "First up, I need you to take a bath, or a shower, since I might need to convince people that this plan will work. And right now, you don't inspire confidence smelling like that. Then we need your help stealing the throne from a god." Minutes later, at Ivy's garden, Kid Flash notices that something is coming when the team gets into position. From a boom tube, Bobo, John, and Scott appear holding the mother box. Batman appears behind John unexpectedly and tells him that he really thought it was a great idea to open an explosive portal in the middle of an undead apocalypse. Constantine points at the portal, shouting that they literally call them boom tubes. What is he expecting? A soothing ocean sound or something? Seconds later, the whole team is finally discussing their next move. Detective Chimp points out that if they really want to access the cure inside Cyborg, they will need Metron's chair, since it contains all knowledge. If there is an answer to be found, it is in there. However, how can they lure Metron out of his chair? He prizes knowledge above all else. What would be something he can't ignore? Suddenly, John showcases Madame Xanadu's crystal ball, able to see the future. When Zatanna, unsure about this, asks if she is aware that he has that. John ignores the question and gives it to Mr. Miracle, reminding him that he will need it back, before Scott mentions that this might work. He will need to take Cyborg to New Genesis. However, he is not sure how they will be received. Superman lets him know that he will be by his side, but can't speak for the others. If anyone feels suited for space, they are welcome to join them, he says. He then proceeds to ask for Dinah, when Hartley tells him that after he was impaled with the sword, Ivy prevented her from entering the sanctuary with her undead husband. Without hesitation, he takes flight to find her, to which Mary also decides to accompany him, mentioning that he has been gone for too long. There are dangers out there he won't be aware of. Minutes later, they find Dinah sitting in an abandoned building, still holding Ollie's barrier. As she looks up, her eyes can't believe John is healed back, and immediately gets closer to him, hugging him tight, saying that she is really sorry. As Mary asks if she's planning on staying here alone, she replies with a cold no, now looking at the deceased body of Green Arrow. With a soft tone, she tells them that Ollie didn't want to come. She was the one who promised him to bring him back. When John replies that she can still help him, there is a cure, and they are about to take on a god. They can really use her help. However, Dinah is not about to leave Ollie behind. Luckily enough, Mary tells her that she doesn't have to. There is a way around Poison Ivy. She can ask Dr. Fate to keep him protected in the tower. Now back in the sanctuary, the team is finally ready to embark on this mission. Mr. Miracle opens the boom tube before saying, "Next stop, New Genesis, home of the new gods." Within seconds of teleporting there, Lightray is the first one to receive them, mentioning that he was starting to think he thought he was too good for them. However, Miracle doesn't have time for his sarcasm, telling him to shut the fuck up. At the same time, Orion appears, shouting, "What in the fires of apocalypse do you think you're doing? You would walk into New Genesis with the anti-life virus?" Before punching him right in the face. Then he looks down at Scott and asks him to stand, but as he does so, he proceeds to punch him again. Every time that Mr. Miracle falls to his knees, Orion asks him to stand, and the process repeats. Superman can't just stand there watching such actions and shouts at Orion to leave him alone, when he ignores him and asks again. However, this time, John moves in and punches him so hard that he is knocked out immediately, telling him to stay down. Seconds later, Highfather appears, before saying his condolences for what happened to Big Barda, when Wonder Woman replies that they are hoping condolences are premature. They may be able to save her, and everyone who has been taken. Miracle wastes no time in telling him that they need the Mobius chair, and asks if he can call for Metron. When Highfather replies, he may not come. No one rules over him. He is only ruled by his quest for knowledge. Scott proceeds to show him Madame Xanadu's crystal ball, when he replies that it doesn't matter. He will not give up the chair willingly, but he will call for him. However, Highfather requires that Mr. Miracle do one thing for him. There's something that he must show him alone. As they reach a balcony, they see Jacob free playing with Forager. Scott looks back at him proudly and mentions that he has grown. "Yes, that's what sons do when we abandon them," replies Highfather. He frowns at the comment, telling him that he didn't. He brought him here to protect him. As his father tries to explain that this decision was taken years ago, before Barda perished, he stops him. His eyes sharpen as he remembers. He tries to console him, to stop punishing himself for what happened, before Scott Scott replies that he gave him away to Darkseid as a means to stop a war. In other words, he did what he felt was right. Highfather observes his grandson in the distance while adding, "Your mother used to say, just because I'm a god doesn't mean I'm always right. She was pretty much infallible. Giving you up is the single greatest regret of my immortal life. You can choose to escape your responsibilities, but I urge you not to give up on him, Scott. Don't miss what we missed. Don't miss what we could have been together. With Darkseid gone, your son may very well rule the universe one day. Do you want me to be his main influence? Do you want Orion or Lightray? You feel guilt for his mother. Perhaps you don't feel worthy to be his father, but you are worthy. You are a great man in a very big hole. You can escape." Mr. Miracle looks back at his father after those words, promising he is going to bring Jacob's mother back, before Highfather tells him that whether he succeeds or not, to come back for his son, to take this part of Barda with him. Now, among the rest of what used to be Apocalypse, Mr. Miracle stands holding the crystal ball while the others hide, waiting for Metron's appearance. As he does so, he immediately tells Scott that Highfather mentioned that he has an object for him, something that can see the future. He proceeds to show him the object, to which he looks at it a bit disappointed. However, there is something tied to it, something far, far older. He then agrees to it, since there is a future he would like to see, when Miracle smiles back at him, adding that he can definitely see his future, before a construct of 2 handcuffs binds them together. In seconds, the rest of the team rushes in, trying to push him away from the chair, when he grabs Dinah by the head and pressures her, breaking the construct. He then punches Mr. Miracle, sending him crashing through one of the meteors, forcing the rest to give him chase. Superman takes another approach, asking him to please wait. He never wanted to fight to begin with. All they need is his chair for a moment, as a means to help the Earth that is being consumed by the anti-life equation. Mary chimes in, trying to make him see that he is supposed to be one of the most intelligent beings in the universe. If they fail to contain this, and death wins, what happens to knowledge? His eyes sharpen as he hears that, and mentions that they should have opened with that instead of an ambush. Before asking that regardless, he would look at the crystal. He has seen a future, but doesn't know how it begins. Seconds later, as Cyborg takes his turn in the chair, his mind opens to a level that he thought unimaginable. Wonder Woman tells him to focus on one catastrophe at a time, when Mary asks if he has found it. He looks at the group and mentions that he needs to recode his blood. The life equation is there. Meanwhile, as Superman is thanking Metron for his help, he suddenly freezes for a second before mentioning that he can't be here. He must leave. Now, in the blink of an eye, he flies out. Dinah, looking at him in the distance, says he just took one look at the future and ran the fuck away. Finally, with their objective complete, the group is ready to leave back to Earth. However, there was someone who knew what was coming. Black Racer witnessed peacefully how the molten core of Apocalypse cracked open, and from it, Darkseid himself arose, now an undead. It didn't take long for Highfather to see what was coming and shout for Forager to take Jacob away. Suddenly, as the door of New Genesis opens, he hears the voice of Orion calling for him, and as he gets closer, he sees it, the imposing figure of Darkseid, ready to bring this homeworld to pieces. At the same time that the first group went on a quest to claim Metron's chair, John Constantine was planning something else. Dr. Fate sees him staring at a door and proceeds to ask him why it is that he can't see through it, when sarcastically he responds, "Because it's closed." Nelson tries to use his power, adding that no doors are closed to Dr. Fate, but it clearly doesn't work. John looks back at him, faintly smiling, and says, "That's a good line, but it's clearly not true." As he proceeds to go inside, he looks back at him, adding, "Look, don't worry about it. This is the Tower of Fate, so whatever's in here is clearly meant to be in here. Otherwise, you'd have to rename the place." Seconds later, he sees Etrigan waiting for him, while asking directly why he was summoned. John tells him to stop playing dumb. He already knows the answer. "What's the update from Hell? How long until Trigon comes?" Etrigan answers that he is really pissed. Therefore, he may be here in around 3 days before laying waste to life and unlife alike. He then looks to his right, where Swamp Thing has been listening to the conversation quietly, understanding that in 3 days, not only the living will burn, but it will take the green as well. As he says his goodbyes to Etrigan, John proceeds to grab Ragman's cloak, when Swamp Thing reminds him of Australia. The garden still cries out. He replies that he will need to deal with that problem if he wants this plan to work out before heading out of the tower. As they walk through the sanctuary, John mentions that they might have a chance for this to work, but he will need to hide all this from some friends, since they won't approve. Swamp Thing asks what he is thinking when they suddenly approach Batman, who is playing with Ace. "Are you as good as your old man?" asks Constantine, when Damien replies, "Not yet." But when he asks if he is close to it, Damien keeps quiet. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Batman proceeds to ask what he needs when Constantine gets closer. "I need to do some questionable things," he says, "but it has to be when Mary Marvel is galaxies away from here, and I could use a team to keep me alive." As he asks if he trusts him, Batman answers, "Of course not. You tell me the whole truth, and I'll help you, and I'll know if you're lying." John doesn't believe he will be able to know it. When Damien looks at him seriously for a second, "Oh, fuck me. You will, won't you? You are just like your dad." As he tells everything to Batman, his eyes widen after hearing such a plan, asking if he is planning on killing anyone. John puts a hand on his shoulder, mentioning that no one who isn't already dead will die. Minutes later, Damien presents him the team. It will be a Bat family trip with Ravager and Swamp Thing. When Jason tells him that actually he and Rose are married, so technically she is part of the Bat family. "Welcome to the family," says Damien. "You'll fit right in, especially if you brought complex, unresolved father issues." Seconds later, John proceeds to write a spell on Swamp Thing's chest, mentioning that long ago, he once used his body as a means to have a baby with his ex-wife, and since they are connected, they can follow his soul. Without wasting any time, Holland begins to travel through the green and the world when he finally reaches it, the hidden city of Nanda Parbat. As they cross the portal, Batman notices the amount of League of Assassins. It seems they were trying to take over the hidden city when the outbreak happened. Sadly, John lets them know that the entity Rama Kushna is pretty good at stopping unwanted magic, so there's no way of teleportation. Jason takes out his guns, adding that at least they don't have to hold back when Batman tells him that they do. If there is a cure, they can't just kill people, but of course they can break their bones and put holes in them. Immediately, the fight starts, with Constantine shouting for everyone to get to the door. Red Hood asks Ravager if there is any future that could benefit them, or if there is something they should expect once they reach the door. She tells them to cover her, to keep the Blighted away from her, when she proceeds to knock on the door. As it opens, a figure appears greeting her, and from it, Deadman appears, welcoming everybody, while hundreds of monks rush toward the heroes to help them. Ravager asks how it is possible that they can see him, when Boston Brand responds that everything works a little different in Rama Kushna's city. They then proceed to follow him, when the glimpse of the Spear of Destiny catches John Constantine's attention. As he gets closer to it, reaching in, the deity gets close to him, asking him if that is the reason he came. He doesn't deny it before Kushna places a hand on his shoulder, telling him, "You think with all the death out there, I would allow more? My home is yours while you are here, Constantine, but I will never allow you to take the Holy Lance." He looks at it for a second and replies, "I know. I'm sorry," before turning around and impaling the goddess with the spear. From the distance, the rest hear the screaming. Deadman can't comprehend why he did it, and lunges at him with speed. However, this was all part of John's plan. He takes Ragman's cloak from one of his pockets and traps him inside. The team appears just seconds later, asking what just happened, when he ignores their questions and tells them that they need to leave. As they cross to another location, Jason tries to ask for answers. "What the hell was that? You stabbed a goddess," he shouts. John replies that it wasn't that fatal. She'll get over it in a few centuries, but she would never let him take the lance any other way. As they walk past giant statues, Batman asks what this place is, when Swamp Thing replies that this place is called the Rock of Eternity. It is the home of the wizard Shazam, and they need his staff. Suddenly, Rose stops and gasps, telling the group that they need to leave, shouting to Constantine to get them out of there before starting to shoot at the darkness up ahead. However, Rose saw a glimpse of the future, and through the shadows, Captain Marvel appears. He goes directly at Jason and slams him into a wall with full force when Swamp Thing intervenes, holding him in place with his vines. Batman throws a few batarangs when Rose rushes toward Jason before he points at the wizard who is coming their way. Ravager throws her sword at him, killing him instantly when Captain Marvel manages to escape, now redirecting his attack toward the rest. John tells everyone to find the staff. Whoever has the purest of hearts can access the wizard's power. As Cassandra reaches out to grab it, a sudden torrent of energy imbues her with the power of Shazam. The undead turns his sight toward her, when in a blink she moves in and punches him right in the face, before kicking him against the dirt, holding the anti-living in place. Sadly, things don't end so well, with Ravager saying how sorry she is. She saw it coming but couldn't react. Jason smiles at her with his last breath, mentioning that he has died before, so this time he isn't that afraid. He is just lucky he got a second chance, a second life with her, and and with a kiss, says his goodbyes before lying dead. Minutes later, as the team returns to the sanctuary, Rose looks back at John crying and shouts at him that he better promise this was worth it. As the rest leave, Batman tells him that he saw him taking Boston Brand. What happened to no one would die, to which he replies that he told him he would kill no one who wasn't already dead. After hearing that, Damian wastes no time and punches him right in the face before leaving. However, someone else was present, telling him that he deserved it, when in seconds, the Spectre appears before John. "Oh, what a shock! The Ghost of Wrath thinks I deserved a punch in the face," replies John. The entity gets closer to him, mentioning that he is holding a dangerous object, something that can end him, which is a bit concerning, before adding that he can stop whatever he is planning. John lights a cigarette looking down and tells him that he is the spirit of vengeance. "Why don't you use all that power and channel it into a bit of insight? What do you think I'm motivated by?" The Spectre smiles darkly for a second before saying his goodbyes. Now in Australia, the Penguin grows desperate with Professor Ivo, who is taking his sweet time fine-tuning the Amazos. He explains that if any of his calculations go wrong, the androids will not only take out the anti-life on the planet, they will also wipe them out as well. Suddenly, every Amazo points their heat vision at Cobblepot, before Ivo says to him, "Considering I am the sole commander of a superpowered, artificially intelligent army that could destroy the very planet you're standing on, maybe you should review your tone." Back on Earth, Cyborg is done with the research. He has finally recoded his blood when Superman asks what comes next. However, while the information is available, Cyborg replies that he just doesn't know. How do they turn it into a cure? Batman, who is on the side playing with Ace, mentions that they will need knowledge, and with sarcasm adds, "If only we had one of the world's greatest biochemists with us." But who is he talking about? Isn't everyone able to do it already dead? Asks Cyborg. Batman agrees. However, being dead shouldn't stop this one. Minutes later, he proceeds to meet with Swamp Thing. Holland tells him that he is really sorry for what happened to Jason. He seemed like a good being. "He wasn't always," replies Damian, "but I think he'd changed a lot. I wish I'd had more time with the guy he'd become." Swamp Thing understands the feeling, mentioning that he too had a brother once, and part of him still misses him. Batman then looks back at him with seriousness and lets him know that this could be the last person they lose to this virus. But to do so, they may need a part of his mind that is still in him. They will need Dr. Alec Holland. As he replies that Dr. Alec was a brilliant biologist, but even he couldn't do what they are asking alone, Batman says that he knows, which is why he will not be alone. Batman decides to bring all brilliant minds into the same circle to create a connection with the Green. A biochemist, toxicologist, psychologist, and medic, the greatest technology, the wisdom of Solomon, the fastest mind, and finally, Batman. Because he is Batman. Minutes later, two events are happening in the world at the same time, with Cyborg announcing that the cure has been found and Professor Ivo ready for the Scourge. And while Superman lends hope to everyone, the Penguin is ready to lay waste to all of it, before sending the Amazos to reclaim the world for him, killing anything in their path. Cyborg, now holding the cure, looks at everyone and says that there is one last step for this to work. They need a test subject. Dinah wastes no time before mentioning Ollie's name. However, Mr. Miracle jumps in, shouting that they should start with Big Barda. As Green Lantern hears this, she loses her strength for a bit. When Scott looks back at her, admitting that he wants her back so badly, but it is not about that. If they miscalculate something and it goes wrong, there is a greater possibility that Barda can take it, letting her know that they shouldn't risk Ollie's life. Minutes later, they decide to go to Alpha Centauri, since it was the safest place he could hide his wife, mentions Mr. Miracle. However, his eyes widen as he realizes that she has escaped. As they look around for her, Dinah suddenly turns and forms a shield construct, but it is ineffective. Big Barda penetrates the defense easily and slams Scott to the dirt with force, ready to deliver a killing blow. Superman moves in and injects her with the cure, but it seems it didn't work. John is ready to make the hard decision before Miracle stops him, telling him not to hurt her. Seconds later, she comes to her senses, asking what happened to her. But more importantly, where is her son? Mr. Miracle smiles at her, mentioning that he is safe in New Genesis. They can go to him, but first, they must save Earth. As she looks at the rest, she asks how long it has been. Dinah looks to the side while mentioning 5 years. This breaks her for a second before Scott tries to console her, saying, "It is not that long in the eyes of a god," before kissing her. Now back in the Tower of Fate, John is battling Ragman's cloak, which wants to get hold of his wicked soul. Suddenly, he hears someone casting a spell outside the door when Zatanna appears furious at him. "What have you done?" she asks. "Is this what Jason died for?" He tries to ask for her trust, but she denies it, since Zatanna has known him for far too long. As John tries to explain to her that if he tells her the plan, she will try to stop him, she replies that he doesn't know that when he grabs Madame Xanadu's crystal ball. "Actually, I do. I saw the future. We fight. It's messy. Best avoided." He then looks at the remains of the door, shouting that he kept this room secret from Dr. Fate. Now any shit can just walk in. At that same moment, the phantom stranger walks in, telling John that he stole that crystal ball. "Are you here to stick up for your girlfriend?" he asks. "Because she was my girlfriend once too, mate. We're an incestuous bunch." He stops right in front of him for a second and then adds, "You must not continue on this path." Constantine replies that the world will end if he steps off, claiming that for a guy who says he can't interfere, he sure sticks his nose in a lot. Phantom Stranger frowns at the question, asking if Zatanna knows. Does she know he took the wizard's staff, Ragman's cloak, and stabbed Ramakrishna with the Spear of Destiny? John gets closer, losing his patience, and replies that he did those things because they had to be done. "After what you did to get yourself doomed for all eternity, are you seriously judging me, you two-faced fuck?" In seconds, Phantom Stranger gets furious and repels him. John stands back, now holding the Spear of Destiny, when Zatanna creates a wall of fire to stop them. However, a voice is heard from the flames, and from it, Jason Blood appears. John looks back at him, already imagining Trigon is almost here, when Jason assures him that is true, but there is more to it. Somewhere else, the team returns with Big Barda cured from the anti-life equation, when Cyborg mentions that there is no sign of degeneration on her. The anti-life has been stuck in a sort of unlife. In other words, the anti-life equation is frozen in the life cycle. He then proceeds to ask to start today. They can bring everyone back if they mass-produce it. However, John appears at that same moment and tells everyone there is no time, before explaining what happened in Australia and the army of Amazos. Superman then realizes that they are killing everyone indiscriminately without knowing they can be saved. He will have to go. He might not be able to take on all of them, but they can slow them down. Cyborg and Bobo mention that they could remove them from their targets by curing them. The world has already lost too much of its population, which leaves those remaining necessary to be saved. They should act now. Kid Flash then has an idea. He moves at full speed, reading every book regarding production, and in 10 minutes, he has acquired enough knowledge to join Swamp Thing and Cyborg in manufacturing the cure. Now in Magnus Labs, they are using Cyborg's plasma cells to create a serum that could cure the first batch of infected. However, problem number 1 has already begun. Trigon has appeared, and as he looks at the streets covered in monsters, preventing their souls from reaching him, he lays waste to everything in his path. Back in the Tower of Fate, John Constantine is finally revealing to Dr. Fate what he has been hiding from him. Before asking Zatanna to wait outside as he goes in, Dr. Fate can't believe what he has done. The powerful objects he has brought together in one single place. John, now starting to wear Ragman's cloak, looks directly at him and says that he will need his helmet and the amulet. Dr. Fate can't believe he's being serious when Phantom Stranger moves in and impales him with the Spear of Destiny. As he asks why, he replies that Constantine has shown him the future, and he knows Dr. Fate would try to prevent what needs to happen. But he will not relinquish the helmet, and it can't be removed with Constantine's magic. He smiles faintly, whispering that he knows, before calling upon the power of Shazam. In seconds, the torrent of energy hits him, giving him enough strength to remove it. Nelson, now on his knees, can't comprehend how he managed to do it. He doesn't have a pure heart to harness the wizard's power. Seconds later, Zatanna walks in after hearing such power. John, now standing there wearing every powerful object imaginable, says, "I am not going to lie. This is exactly as bad as it looks." He tries to explain that this is the reason he didn't want her there when she gets closer, asking if he is coming back. When John smiles at her, adding that on this whole planet, she is the only person he doesn't want to disappoint, before sharing a kiss. And with all the known objects in place, he takes flight as a means to intercept Trigon. Back in Australia, the Amazos are laying waste to everything in their path when a boom tube opens in the middle of the chaos, and from it, a group composed mostly of heavy hitters appears, trying to hold off as many of the androids as they can. On the other side of the battlefield, Zatanna is still waiting for John Constantine's appearance, when the phantom stranger tells her not to be naive. As he calls for Trigon's attention, he reminds him that he isn't supposed to intervene or choose a side. Elsewhere, Superman and Batman are flying over the Australian garden, where they can see the amount of destruction left behind. John mentions how many people died in vain here, not knowing they could be saved. But how could they? Replies Damian. The people inside the bunker couldn't have known there was a cure. Suddenly, at full speed, Superman receives a punch in the face, before Batman evades the incoming attack, followed by a beam of heat. Superman moves in and grabs him by the neck, while Batman keeps evading before placing a mine-like object on the enemy, which causes an electric shock. Seconds later, an explosion is heard from one of the bunker walls, and from it they emerge, now facing Simon Stagg and the Penguin. "You must be a Robin, and you're the son, I take it," says Cobblepot. As Superman asks them to stop the androids peacefully, the Penguin replies that none of that will be happening. They already planned to create their personal oasis in this area long before the virus struck. But more importantly, did he really think they didn't plan to kill him? Before shouting at the guards to attack, they ignore the order, shouting that they are not hurting Superman. At that same time, the Penguin feels a pressure in his body, same as Stagg and some of the rest who are present. As Batman asks what is wrong with them, Superman tells him that it is coming from above them. Now, outside the bunker, John Constantine has appeared wearing all the powerful objects that he managed to collect, and with them, he begins to absorb every wicked soul in the proximity. Superman appears seconds later asking what he is supposed to be doing. John replies that everything is okay. Ragman's cloak only targets those who are truly evil, and if they are here, it is because they deserve it. Until then, they will have to answer for their sins, and since it is about justice, his old man would have approved. John explains to him that he really needs to do this. There is certain doom out there that will otherwise destroy the planet. Superman tries to offer his help when he rejects it, mentioning that he has already seen that future, and he doesn't make it. Before he takes his leave, John tells him that he is a good man, when Constantine replies that he really is not, but it feels good to hear it coming from him. Back in the bunker, Batman is checking on Professor Ivo, who was impaled by the Penguin's umbrella, deducing that there was some internal dispute regarding the control of the androids. John asks what he wants to do, when Damian replies that they will not get much from this. Fortunately, they have a living computer as a friend, so all they need to do is stick to the plan. Moments later, as they leave, they also take one of the Amazo heads with them. On the other side of the world, they proceed to meet Cyborg, telling him that they ran into a bit of trouble, unable to shut the androids down. However, Batman asks if it would be possible for him to crack one of the heads open as a means to understand how they transmit with each other and infect their systems. "I realize you're probably over viruses by now, but yes, that's exactly what I am suggesting." Seconds later, Superman mentions that while he is working on that, he will have to move fast to get ahead of the androids and cure everyone in their path. He then proceeds to ask Flash if he is ready, when Wallace looks back at him, smiling. "Sure, I race you." And without wasting any more time, the two split their work between continents, moving at full speed, trying to inject as many undead as possible. At the same time, Trigon has defeated the Phantom Stranger and Zatanna before John Constantine finally appears. As he helps her stand up, Zatanna can't believe that he came, when he replies that of course he did. He was just getting a little more prepared. John then proceeds to tell her to hold the Spear of Destiny for him. He will need it later, before facing Trigon face to face. As much as I kind of enjoy seeing the stranger trodden on, let him up. The powerful demon gets close to him, adding that he has collected some toys. "Do you have any idea of the eternity of torment waiting for you in hell?" He continues mumbling words before John tells him to shut up and punches him in the face with the power of Zeus, enhancing Hercules' strength and sending him flying through the streets. Solomon's powers come next, before opening a dimension where tentacles appear, binding his arms. However, Trigon isn't a mere enemy, and with a single blow, slams him through the dirt. The demon, now looking down at him, says that he will see him in hell for all the stunts he pulled here, before taking his leave. And as John tries to say his goodbyes to Zatanna, his air is cut short before he perishes. Meanwhile, the hero heroes are being overwhelmed by the androids, while Flash can only observe from the distance, trying to cure as many people as possible to prevent their attacks on civilians. Back in Gotham, Cyborg is finished. There's a 30% chance that when we turn this on, the Amazo head just wakes up and kills us all, before Batman replies that those are better odds than usual. In seconds, Swamp Thing gives the green light and the connection is established. Back in the battlefield, Green Lantern has formed a shield, trying to keep her friends alive, when suddenly the enemy stops, and from the sky, they begin to fall. All over the world, it happens simultaneously. Back in Australia, Superman is now facing Trigon, telling him to stop, before the demon replies that he already killed the most powerful magic being in this universe. John immediately takes flight and hits him right in the chest, able to shake him for a second. When Zatanna, who is observing the fight, suddenly hears Constantine's voice. He's fucking impressive, isn't he? She can't believe it when he looks back at her, faintly smiling. Yep, I am Deadman. It sucks, but this was the plan. I wasn't trying to be an asshole when I took Boston Brand's power. All that magic I stole is still connected to it. It's still coursing through my soul. Now taking flight, he reveals how all his actions converge into this one single moment. Being the most powerful dead being, he is able to get into Trigon's mind, now able to fight for control. He then proceeds to reduce his size, and while looking directly into Zatanna's eyes, asks for the Spear of Destiny. For a moment, Trigon's mind comprehends what is coming, and in the blink of an eye, he impales himself with it through his soul. However, John's soul can't be touched. He is already set for an eternity of torment. He then looks back at her for one last time, before telling her that he will miss all this. At the same time, the group comes for Flash, who hasn't stopped curing people all around the globe, and tells him that it is okay. He can rest now. As Batman congratulates Cyborg for what he has done all over the world, we can see friends, leaders, and families reunited again. But more importantly, they were able to keep their promise, to bring them all back. However, there is another story unraveling somewhere else, because while Earth was fighting the anti-life equation, the city of Kandor is under siege by Brainiac. As a means to save their last hope, Kara's parents decide to send her away just minutes before the planet perishes. She travels through the galaxy for years, and by the time she reaches a new opportunity to start again, what she receives instead is the monstrous welcome of the new gods. Kara tries to move fast out of their way, but these beings are not mere mortals. They are gods, a match for her, and in seconds, she perishes to them. Back in the present, friends are getting up to speed on what happened while they were gone. Batman, in particular, offers his help to John to do something that was long overdue. However, he rejects it. It's space we're talking about. We're going to the center of the sun, which is 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. Before saying their goodbyes for the time being, he lets him know that if anything happens, he will do whatever it takes to come after both of them. Minutes later, now in front of the giant star, the team observes Superman's silhouette still absorbing the sun. As John takes out the syringe, made with a kryptonite needle, Cyborg reminds him to lure him out, and they will do the rest. As he moves toward him at full speed, it only takes seconds for Clark to notice his presence, and without wasting time, he moves out and grabs him by the neck before sending him flying through space. Green Lantern forms a construct to hold him in place, but it seems ineffective. The years of Superman absorbing the sun have proven incredibly beneficial to his strength, making him even more dangerous than he was 5 years ago. Wonder Woman grabs him with her lasso of truth, while Batgirl moves in and kicks him before Mary Marvel holds one of his arms, and in seconds, Cyborg makes his move toward him. 2 days later, on Earth 2, John Stewart and Guy Gardner appear to give a report to Lois Lane regarding the planets Elantra 7 and Sarlene. For some reason, their two closest inhabited planets are not returning their communications. John asks permission to investigate, to which Lois agrees. They already have enough defenses with the Green Lantern Corps around. Suddenly, the power ring shows a spike of energy of Apokoliptian nature, and within seconds, a boom tube opens. John wastes no time calling for every Green Lantern and Justice League member to report when a voice is heard. It's okay, it's just us. And, well, through the portal, Superman appears. Lois Lane's eyes can't believe it before she rushes toward him to hug him. Martha is also present, finally looking at her son when someone else appears. Sorry, I think I took the wrong turn in there. It's my first intergalactic portal. miracle, says Jonathan. Martha gasps for a second looking at him before he jokes that he heard she hit him in the head with a shovel, and in seconds she moves in before sharing a kiss. As the superfamily shares a moment, Big Barda signals Mr. Miracle. Scott takes his mother box out before telling everyone that it is time for them to return to New Genesis. Their son has waited for too long, and they don't know when they are coming back, to which Clark gives them his praise for their help and everything they did. At that same moment, Damien lets John know that it is time for him to do something, and he doesn't know how this person will take it. Minutes later, he finishes telling Alfred all that happened back on Earth. He frowns at what he has learned and decides to excuse himself for a moment. Dr. Leslie Tompkins mentions that she doesn't understand, asking, "The news is wonderful. They found a cure. So what's wrong?" Seconds later, as Damien approaches him, he tries to console Alfred, telling him that there was no way of knowing. Not even Bruce was able to know. Alfred turns back to Damien, sadness in his eyes, and says, "Please do not try to absolve me of this. They could have been saved. I pulled the trigger 3 times. I killed my sons," before breaking down in tears. Now up in space, a group of Brainiac's probes has approached Earth 2, and just as Jessica Cruz receives the alert, the 2 Superman move in against them, destroying every one of them. The Green Lanterns appear moments later, with Guy Gardner joking that they didn't leave any for them, when Cruz looks to her left with surprise in her eyes, adding that his probes already saw them, and it won't take long until he appears. Within a few hours, one of Brainiac's ships appears. John Stewart asks Clark if he can see through it, when he replies that those ships are shielded from their vision. However, Cyborg points out that it looks damaged. Something is off, to which Guy reminds him not to fall for this Trojan horse. It is clearly a trap, but Superman assures them that Brainiac is too proud of his own intellect and power to rely on deceit, before mentioning that he is going in. John stops him, adding that he is going too. He is not planning on losing him again. Not now, not ever. As the 2 go on to scout, they see the amount of damage within the ship, before hearing a noise coming from one of the corridors, and as they follow it, they find themselves face to face with Brainiac itself, repeating the same message. The super-intelligent being looks back at them before saying, "The gods are dead, but still they come, Kal-El. They will poison the universe. The dead gods will end everything." A day earlier, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda are on their way to New Genesis, when Barda asks if their son will be angry that they were gone for too long. Scott tries to console her, mentioning that if he is mad at someone, it will be him, who used her death as an excuse to avoid him. As they cross the portal back home, what they encounter is total destruction. New Genesis has completely fallen. Barda immediately grows desperate, asking for her son, when she suddenly turns, looking at another boom tube with an unexpected look. Mr. Miracle tries to stop her, telling her that she has no idea what would happen through that portal. However, a mother's strength pushes her to go through it, but as she manages to phase one of her hands, a voice shouts for her to stop. From the portal, at full speed, Black Racer appears, bringing her back. Scott rushes toward her, who in seconds has lost a hand. Black Racer tells them that she will heal, when Miracle asks, "What the hell is that portal?" He looks back at them before mentioning Darkseid's name, to which Scott replies that he is supposed to be dead. "Yes and no," responds death itself. An unliving Darkseid struck, and all that weren't killed are now agents of the anti-life. The mother boxes have been infected with the anti-life virus, just as the new gods have been. And now, only the dead or unliving can pass through the doom tubes. As Big Barda asks where they lead and where Darkseid is, Black Racer replies that the first planet he attacked was Korugar, home to 7 billion people. And while they had trained soldiers and advanced weapons, they were reduced to nothing in the face of deities controlled by the anti-life. But as they were slaughtered, a cry for help made it out, reaching Warworld, a planetoid of destruction floating through space. Now, we see Sinestro receiving a report, when immediately he decides to move on, mentioning that he is not about to let his planet die. Meanwhile, back on Earth 2, Guy Gardner can't believe they are considering helping Brainiac. As someone who puts his foot in his mouth every few sentences, I'm no fan of cancel culture. But even I think it's a bad idea to team up with Poster Boy for intergalactic genocide. Brainiac looks back at Clark, understanding their hesitation and distrust, before offering one of his collections as a sign of good faith. As Guy asks what it is supposed to be, he replies that it is Kandor, the last surviving city of Krypton. Batman chimes in, asking why he is willing to give that up, when he replies that he collects knowledge. If the universe dies, knowledge dies with it. Despite the considerable power at my disposal, unliving Darkseid tore me in half. I barely escaped the attack, continues Brainiac. Unless you can halt them, the undead gods will spread the anti-life equation across the stars. Guy interrupts again, asking how he knows the universe will end, when he replies that he is a 9th-level artificial intelligence. But what does that mean? And more importantly, who came up with the levels? To which Brainiac mentions that he did. Well, isn't that convenient? Let me guess, this scale of yours goes up to 9? He asks. Before replying, it can theoretically reach 13. Guy smiles at him, adding that he is an 11 of greatness on a scale that only goes to 6 before mocking him. It's like you created your own competition to pat yourself on the back and then only awarded yourself a participation trophy. Lois cuts into the conversation and asks directly if he has an idea how to fight this. Gardner, still unsure, can't believe that they are asking for his advice when Superman tries to make him understand how it feels to not exist, to be an agent of the virus and nothing more. He then looks at the remains of his old world, mentioning that he would do anything to stop the end of all life. He would do anything to protect the spark in this universe. However, Brainiac is not moved by these words, mentioning that with every wasted word they speak here, the anti-life spreads and more life slips into darkness. The odds of you saving existence are irrelevant. Superman's eyes sharpen as he hears those words, before replying that they will reach out to every ally in the universe. Back on Korugar, the battle has begun, with Sinestro unleashing the full force of Warworld. However, as he orders a second attack, a green construct stops it, catching him by surprise. From the distance, he can see two of the greatest Green Lanterns, Kyle Rayner and his daughter Soranik Natu. He shouts that he is not attacking his own world. When they reply that they saw his actions, he wants to pretend he doesn't have a giant planetoid full of guns. Arkillo appears moments later, asking him to move aside when Kyle's ring reports a threat coming their way. In seconds, Supergirl appears, punching Rayner first. Natu reacts quickly, but Kara ignores her and continues in the direction of the planetoid, and with full strength inserts one of the mother boxes, infecting one of the largest and most destructive computers in the galaxy. In the blink of an eye, Warworld disintegrates Arkillo with a single shot. Natu is still trying to wake up Kyle when Sinestro stops one of the attacks, shouting at his daughter to focus. Darkseid is coming. Immediately, the mighty figure of Darkseid appears, before Sinestro tells her not to hold back, to use everything. For a moment, there is equilibrium between the two forces, but in seconds, Kara breaks it. As Natu looks around for her father, Darkseid has already taken hold of him, crushing him with his bare hands. Soranik can only scream for him, now looking directly into his father's eyes. And for a moment, Sinestro's mind is filled with fear, shouting at his daughter to run, before being decapitated by Darkseid with a single motion. Natu can't compose herself, filled with desperation, when Kyle tells her that they need to go. They can't do this alone, before blocking Orion's attack. As they find a gap to escape, something unexpected is about to happen. The yellow power ring communicates that Sinestro 1 is deceased, before starting to scan for a replacement. As it approaches Darkseid, the ring brightens, recognizing him as a being with the ability to instill great fear, and in seconds, a new yellow lantern is born, one who by himself was already a god. Now, on the planet of Ran, 2 months ago, the Thanagarians launch an invasion into the planet, laying waste to everything in their path, when Adam Strange appears. A man from Earth who years ago was adopted by this world, but more importantly, he has formed a family. As he sees them safe, he proceeds to tell them that they need to move, when his little daughter asks why. However, before he can answer, he begins to warp away at the worst possible time. Sadly, Adam can only move between worlds under the Zeta beam, which is not under his control. Just seconds before he vanishes into the air, he tells them not to worry. He will be back. And in a blink, he is back on Earth. Gotham City. He wastes no time in asking the computer to find the next date for the Zeta beam, before looking down at the coordinates. As he flies in that direction, something catches his eye and he shouts, "Hey, Diana!" But as he sees the silhouette turn around, his face drops in fear, and in seconds, Wonder Woman is inches from him, infecting him. 2 weeks later, back on Ran, it seems the Thanagarian forces have taken over the citizens' homes when they hear a noise. Immediately, Alana Strange and her daughter look at the soldiers, telling them that the house arrest has come to an end before one of the guards is hit by a beam. In seconds, they recognize who it is, and while the daughter is happy to see him, his wife's face says something else. Now standing before them, the horrifying figure of Adam Strange looks back at them before reaching in. Days later, in the Rylax system, an emissary is looking for noble and fearless warriors for an intergalactic mission when a voice chimes in. "What does it pay?" asks the stranger with a gravelly voice. words when the emissary looks back at him, clearly uninterested. "I am looking for someone noble. You clearly do not fit that description." As those words leave his mouth, the people around him stand still, looking back at him. Without hesitation, Lobo moves in furiously. "And how would you describe the main man, you weedy little bastich?" However, the fight that is about to start is interrupted by a Thanagarian ship outside the bar, and in seconds, thousands of soldiers fly down, infecting and killing everyone. Lobo asks what the frag is going on, before grabbing one of the undead by the neck. As he gets scratched in the chest, he doesn't even react to such an insignificant attack, before the equation surprisingly mentions that he doesn't turn. Lobo smiles at him before twisting his neck. "Oh, I can turn," he says before decapitating the soldier. He then proceeds to take the Thanagarian's wings, shouting that nobody gets away with killing his bartender, and takes flight. In seconds, he impacts the ship head-on, creating an enormous explosion, and as he emerges from the rubble, completely untouched, the emissary's eyes widen looking at him, mentioning that he is a great warrior. Lobo gets closer, saying, "No shit, you want Lobo to save the universe? Let's talk turkey." Back in the present, on the island of Themyscira, the Amazons are saying their goodbyes to Diana. As Queen Hippolyta signals Green Arrow and Artemis to light the fire, a voice suddenly catches everyone by surprise. She was a fine soldier. Immediately, every soldier and hero present points their weapons at Ares, whom Hippolyta tells that many gods were invited today, but not the god of war. "I am not here to ruin your daughter's funeral, Hippolyta," says Ares. "I am here because I have something to show you." As they walk through the Hall of Gods, he proceeds to tell Green Arrow to take the quivers and bow. He might need it for what is to come. Ollie replies that the weight feels a little off, before asking if he can tweak it. Ares can't believe his words. How can you tweak the golden bow of Apollo? A bow that hunted the great beast of Karkrum, that slew the Leviathan lion? To which Oliver adds, "It's a bit top-heavy." He frowns at the comment before agreeing. Seconds later, Wonder Woman asks directly what he wants from them, when he replies that a war is coming. Cassie mentions that they already fought a war. Billions died. What is he doing here at this moment? Unmoved by those words, Ares replies that that was not war. There was no struggle, only defeat, and he is not the god of slaughter. But now, a war is coming that cannot be won. The final war. It will be glorious, but ultimately futile. I will stay to watch the end, but every race in the universe will die. As Queen Hippolyta asks how he is so sure of their defeat, he replies that it has happened before, demonstrating with a book how an entire universe was infected. Ollie then chimes in, asking that if it is a historical record, how they defeated it last time. When Ares says that they didn't, this is a record from a universe that was lost. Suddenly a sound is heard. Dinah's power ring sends a high priority alert to all Green Lanterns. From the base of operations of the Green Lantern Corps, Ganthet sends a message that reaches everyone. Lanterns Soranik and Kyle Rayner have witnessed the fall of Korugar. More planets are in direct danger. All Green Lantern Corps are to return to OA for briefing immediately. Gather any and all allies. This is a universal threat. The anti-life virus is spreading across the stars. As the message ends, Ollie tries to explain that they already have a cure to end the equation, when Ares stops him right away. "You are not fighting an equation," he says before Wonder Woman mentions Darkseid's name. Ares turns abruptly saying, "Darkseid? He's a new god. He's a child, a powerful pawn for something much larger. He had no idea what he was playing with when he merged the anti-life with death. What he has unleashed, what has turned its gaze toward us, is not an equation. This is older than numbers, older than gods. This universe will die, because Erebos is here." We now see images of Nightwing, Robin, and Batman being shot in the chest by Alfred Pennyworth, who cannot pardon himself for what he has done. As he sees Bruce's deceased body asking why he did it, his mind is filled with despair. The images ask why he killed them. They didn't have to die. Before Alfred covers his eyes, tears streaming down his face, telling them how sorry he is. However, the questions still surround his mind when he is suddenly awakened by Leslie Tompkins. He says that he is sorry. He didn't mean to wake her up. Before she replies that part of sharing their lives is sharing their demons too. "I need you to hear me, Alfred Pennyworth. It wasn't your fault. As your girlfriend and your doctor, I'm telling you, you need to find a way to forgive yourself, or that anger will consume you." He tries to deny it when she pushes again, saying that he keeps that fury all buttoned up in a three-piece suit. and yet he raised Batman. Adding that he has never stopped to think that Bruce carried some of his anger too, and that his crusade of vengeance was also part of him. Suddenly someone knocks at the door. As Leslie responds, this catches Damian by surprise, who starts teasing her regarding her stay in Alfred's house. Pennyworth tries to deny it too, when Damian smiles back at him, telling him that he is happy for both of them. However, the moment is cut short when Damian tells him that he needs to go. The Guardians on OA are planning how to fight all of this. Alfred's eyes drop with sadness, mentioning that he knows this isn't fair to ask, but to please not to go. He has already lost too many sons. To please stay here, where it is safe. Damian looks directly into his eyes while replying that the anti-life equation is spreading across the universe. Nowhere is safe. They have to stop this. As Alfred asks if he truly thinks he can stop a god, Damian replies that he can try, before Alfred gets closer, saying that there is too much of his father in him. If I can't convince you to stay, then I have another request. I want to stand with you. Find me a way. A weapon, power, or ring. I want to fight. I don't want to sit uselessly on the sidelines. At that same moment, John appears, mentioning that they have to go, before Damian puts on his mask. You have never sat uselessly on the sidelines, Alfred. Nothing our family has achieved would be possible without you. Do you want to battle undead gods with me? When Alfred replies without hesitation that he does, Damian smiles back at him, before adding that there is too much of his father in him too. Seconds later, as they take flight, Superman proceeds to tell Batman that in a moment when they are facing a universal apocalypse, seeing Alfred and Leslie together is a great thing. Now on the planet Almerac, we see the Almeracians preparing for a full retreat after one scout informs Maxima of the undead armada. However, the two queens do not flee with them. They wait for the Forever People to appear, giving their people enough time to escape. As the battle begins, the two prove to be fierce warriors, taking down some of the new gods in their path. But sadly, it isn't enough. Prima is unexpectedly struck by an Omega beam that cuts her down, while Maxima is overwhelmed by the yellow constructs coming her way. And in seconds, she becomes another terrifying tool of the anti-life equation. Now on Oa, home of the Guardians, Ganthet begins his report regarding the containment measures. 12 planets have been destroyed. Over 100 billion lives have been lost. Another 7 planets, with species clearly seen as assets by the anti-life, have been infected. We are sanctioning lethal force. These infected worlds must be wiped away. These words suddenly catch John and Clark by surprise, who mention that they have a cure. They can help them. Ganthet turns his gaze toward them before saying, "You are Superman, and we respect you, but your compassion is misplaced here, Kal-El. The spread must be stopped." Cyborg can't believe they are considering the wholesale slaughter of beings that can be cured, while Brainiac points out that the Guardians are correct. That is the logical course of action. Guy Gardner looks sideways at Brainiac after his comment. "Oh, great. Ganthet, if Brainiac is on our side, maybe we should rethink our side." Suddenly, Superman flies toward the Guardian, shouting that he will not allow the destruction of entire worlds. When the Guardian, with a cold tone, asks if he is planning to stand against them. The two face each other while the tension rises, before Batgirl and Mary Marvel stand next to Clark, saying that he will not be alone. At the same time, every Green Lantern points their rings at them, while Kilowog pressures them to stand down. Kyle Rayner and Soren Ignatu try to calm things down, understanding that all of this is a natural response to a cosmic army of undead, but they should try to use their words. However, Ganthet says that they can't risk it. They can't allow any more powerful beings to become agents of the anti-life, and he proceeds to order Kal-El to be detained on Oa. Batman and Wonder Woman can't believe their decision, when in seconds, Superman moves in and destroys the construct with a single hit. The force of the impact sends Ganthet back, while Guy celebrates Superman's actions. Immediately, Kilowog and Tomar Ray strike Clark back, sending him flying before John's eyes. Batgirl moves in, punching Kilowog right in the face. This only excites Ares even more, seeing the battle that has started among allies. Batman suddenly notices that something is wrong. He can feel his pulse. It is elevated. This is clouding their judgment and heightening their emotional responses. As he realizes that no one is acting under control, he turns to Ares, shouting, "You are manipulating us, God of War. Stop this." He doesn't deny it, mentioning that he only gave them a little nudge. Before a voice chimes in, "You should listen to the little Bat Batman, Ares. I won't let you hurt Superman. In seconds, the fight stops as they see Mr. Mxyzptlk, one of the world forgers who operates in the 5th dimension. Now, on Earth 2, a boom tube opens in front of Blue Beetle and Firestorm, who get into position when Black Racer appears, accompanied by Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. Before Lois Lane can ask directly what happened, with sadness in her tone, Barda asks for Superman and the others. The undead gods have taken her son. Back on Oa, the two entities look at each other with determination when Ares asks if he thinks he can command him. Mxyzptlk smiles back at him before saying, "Oh, I think I can do a lot more than just command you." Ganthet appears seconds later, asking for him by his bare name when the omnipotent being looks back at him. "That's Mr. Mxyzptlk to you, Guardian." Immediately, John and Clark get between them to stop any possible fight. Superman, in particular, points at the Guardians with determination before letting them know that they will take the cure to the infected planets. If the Green Lantern Corps or the undead gods want to stand against them, so be it. Their position will not stop them from fighting the anti-life. Wonder Woman adds that it is not an equation. Everything they thought they knew is wrong. Darkseid has allowed something called Erebos to leak into this universe. Cyborg mentions that he has spoken to this entity before Superman asks if he knows of this name. The Guardian looks to the side, thinking, and adds, "If Erebos is at the heart of this, then it changes everything. The core cannot be used to wipe away the infected planets. All Green Lanterns are to guard Oa. The central power battery must be protected at all costs." Batman chimes in and asks if they can point them to where the spread is. "What do the front lines look like?" As he shows a planetary system, Ganthet mentions that the front lines are everywhere. This is spread across multiple galaxies. However, Damian points at one planet in particular that is brighter than the others. When Ganthet mentions that it is where Darkseid has the largest portion of the Armada, and it is being attacked as they speak. In seconds, Kilowog's eyes fill with despair. He recognizes his homeworld, but before John Stewart can console him, he takes flight at full speed. The Guardian tells John to leave him when he disagrees, since Kilowog would never leave his people. But Ganthet's decision is final, mentioning that they need to speak with the Quintessence. Guy Gardner shouts at him to go do that, but in the meantime they will go fight that thing. He looks back aggressively at Guy, adding that no Green Lantern is to face the anti-life before the Quintessence makes its decision. Their duty is here. Mr. Mxyzptlk then tells everyone that he and Superman will fight Darkseid. When Ares shouts, asking if he really thinks he can defeat him. "I mean, I won't really need to fight him. I'll probably just turn him into a flower arrangement." Seconds later, John asks to come with them when Clark denies it. He understands why he wants to, but he will be needed somewhere else. John believes that he is trying to protect him, when Clark assures him that he isn't. As he saw in the Guardian's vision, there are dozens of other planets that need help. He tells him that he wishes he could take him with him to keep him safe, but he needs him to protect their two Earths. The Guardians have already given up, so he needs him to keep their family safe, and he won't believe they are safe unless John is with them. Minutes later, he, Mxyzptlk, and Kilowog finally arrive at Bolovaxvik, where they see the amount of destruction. "This is overwhelming. 16 billion minds, and we feel totally alone," he says in despair. When John Stewart appears, accompanied by other members of the Green Lantern Corps, Kilowog asks about the Guardians' orders, when they reply that the Guardians say a lot of things with a lot of rules, but not a lot of loyalty. John puts a hand on his shoulder and reminds him that he is a teacher, but more importantly, he is their friend. And with those words in mind, the battle begins. The Green Lanterns are trying to keep the undead Thanagarians at bay, while Superman gives enough time for the civilians to escape. However, a match for him appears at full speed, crashing him into the ground. As he tries to compose himself, he asks the being who she is supposed to be and why she is wearing that symbol. Without hesitation, Kara uses her heat vision and disintegrates the civilian Superman had just saved seconds earlier, leaving only his remains behind. Then another sudden attack hits him again when Darkseid appears, sending Clark back to his knees. Just before he can make his next move, Mr. Mxyzptlk stops him, adding that it is enough. With the cocky tone he is known for, he proceeds to ask himself what he should do to Darkseid, what he should turn him into. However, Mxyzptlk's confidence plummets once he sees the corrupted mother box, because while he cannot be harmed by the virus, he has eyes. Therefore, he can see. And in seconds, he is transformed into a monstrous fifth-dimensional being, now facing his former allies. Guy Gardner can't believe it, shouting to take the fucking giant imp down, when John Stewart and Kilowog decide to pour their power against him. But while the rest of the Green Lanterns move aside, the two are trapped between his fingers, crushed with extreme force. The rest of the team tries to free them from Mxyzptlk's grip, but it is ineffective. The two look at each other before saying the Green Lantern oath, and in seconds, they are crushed. Now the imposing figure proceeds to destroy the whole planet, but he doesn't stop there. There is a destination in the equation's mind. He moves at full speed toward the Green Lantern central power battery, crushing everything in his path. As the bodies of the Green Lanterns fall through space, they are exposed to the vacuum, suffocating every member whose power has been cut off. At the same time, the Quintessence observes Erebos' actions. They are about to lose this universe. When the Spectre stands before them, he can no longer simply watch and allow this to happen. Hera tries to stop him, to not intervene, to instead focus all their energy on the next universe, when Phantom Stranger interrupts, telling her that the Quintessence has disappeared. Almost all of their members have been lost to the equation or defeated by someone else. At that same moment, one of the Guardians alerts them that the Green Lanterns are falling, and without hesitation, Jim Corrigan moves in. As the seconds pass, the members are almost losing consciousness, when a blink of hope gives them enough strength to breathe again. From the distance, Jim has restored what was broken. When Mxyzptlk turns his gaze toward him, furious at his intervention, the two move against each other, now ready to clash. When Corrigan, consumed by rage, says, "Yes, Agent of Entropy, I am the spirit of vengeance, and I am very fucking pissed off." Somewhere else, Lobo is negotiating his deal regarding saving the universe. When he asks for the price, the client proceeds to remind him that the universe is his too. If it dies, he will perish as well. However, this doesn't change his stance, because what Lobo wants is pleasure for an eternity. They then decide to promise him 100 years of hedonism and excess, but Lobo replies that it might get boring. However, they insist, ensuring that they will create an endless onslaught of creative scenarios for him. Nothing will be too depraved, and after hearing such a deal, he agrees, throwing his cigarette at the client before shouting that it is time to hunt the dead. Back in the rubble of Bolovax Vic, Superman is unable to react quickly enough to prevent such destruction. As he approaches Kyle Rayner, he can sense his despair. He has just lost John Stewart, Kilowog, and an entire world with billions of people, before muttering to Clark that they have lost. Now, Superman scans the area when his eyes meet Darkseid's. He then places a hand on Kyle's shoulder, reminding him that they are still here. They haven't lost yet, and in the next second, he flies away at full speed, anger boiling through him. Meanwhile, the Spectre is still battling Mr. Mxyzptlk. The two are going at each other with ferocity, and as they do, planets are swallowed into oblivion after every impact. The Green Lanterns provide their help to Jim Corrigan, trying to give him the advantage in this fight. However, the omnipotent imp is ruthless, crushing some of them like ants. Back on Earth 2, aboard Brainiac's ship, the team is discussing how to proceed with the spread across the galaxy. John suggests returning to Earth to mass-produce another batch of the cure. Green Arrow is not sure about this. How do they distribute it intergalactically to billions of undead without being torn apart? Additionally, Big Barda tells John that they can only take him back to Earth. After that, they will take some of the cures and continue their own mission. When Batman asks where she is planning to go, they need them here. When she replies that her son is still out there, he has been taken by Darkseid's army, and nothing else matters until they bring him back, to which Alfred also agrees. Suddenly, Wonder Woman mentions that the mother box is making some kind of noise. When Brainiac approaches, his eyes widen, understanding that the two mother boxes are connected, and worse, they are infected. In seconds, Big Barda tries to fly away from the ship, when an interconnected portal forms above them, and from it, the undead gods appear. John signals to Batman and Lois to go and get everyone out, before creating an opening for them. All across the city, the heroes try to contain as many enemies as they can, while the civilians board the arcs. However, more portals keep appearing. Out of nowhere, Adam Strange Strange infects Leslie right in front of Alfred, who cannot let her go, promising that he will bring her back before Batman pulls him away from her. Back in space, Mr. Mixaplik is gaining ground against the Spectre, shouting that it is time for him to die, when at full speed Superman appears, hitting him right in the chin before continuing his pursuit of Darkseid. The Spectre takes advantage of the situation and impales him straight through the chest. Now the two look at each other momentarily when Jim says, "If you can hear me in there, you will not win this, Erebos. The heart of this universe will keep beating." Sadly, this gives Erebos an opportunity, and he reaches into the Spectre, tearing his host away from the Spirit of Wrath before sending him flying through space. Superman appears moments later to catch him, but it is already too late. As Clark holds his hand, Jim grips it with strength, telling him that this universe is a miracle and not to let it fall. Back on Earth 2, Batman is trying to convince Alfred to leave, saying, "This isn't over. We can come back to save everyone, but for now, we have to go." Suddenly, Green Arrow looks at the sky and shouts for Batman to look out, when Highfather appears, blocking the entrance to the Ark. Batman moves in, trying to keep him busy, and manages to land a hit. However, he is facing the impossible, and in seconds, Highfather strikes back, breaking his jaw with a single blow. At that moment, Alfred steps in front of him, trying to protect Damian, screaming at the thought of losing another person he loves. It is a scream of defiance, of grief, but most of all, of fury. And in that moment, the echo of his anger is heard across the cosmos. But there is harmony in that rage, and in the middle of that scream, two beings become one. Damian can't believe his eyes, while the anti-life equation struggles to comprehend what has just happened. Now standing before them is the Spectre, joined with the rage of a man. And as Alfred moves in, he shouts furiously at the undead, "You will not take another son from me," before driving his fist straight through Highfather's skull with a single punch. Meanwhile, Lois is directing the civilians to the Arks, as Ollie keeps the undead at bay. Back in space, the team is confronted by the army of Thanagarians, when in the distance, Lobo appears. "Well, this looks like a fraggin' fun time," he said before being confronted by Lightray. Them. He moves against him without hesitation, and grabs him with his hook, taking his head off. Back on Earth 2, Big Barda is furious, taking Adam Strange by the neck before hitting him bluntly in the head. However, Mr. Miracle shouts at her to stop. Someone they have been looking for days has appeared. Jacob, their son, has long been lost to the virus, and in seconds he moves in, thrusting his bare hands into his father's chest. Alfred, now looking down at the deceased body of Highfather, is suddenly called by Batman when he says that everything is all right. He is safe now. Sadly, he is not, before grabbing his head and shouting that he can feel the virus moving through him. Wonder Woman can't believe it, trying to console him when Damian, unable to speak clearly, says, "I'm sorry, Cassie. I tried, but is not late for Alfred." She looks at the new entity, unsure, when Damian continues, looking back at him. "I know you are going to tear them apart, Alfred. You'll want to destroy, but you have the power to save." Before he can say the next words, Damian is lost to the equation, shouting with rage. At the same time, Maxima tries to catch the rest by surprise when Wonder Woman, furiously, grabs her hand before counterattacking at full force. Then another problem arises when a boom tube opens, and from it, Darkseid appears, accompanied by his personal army and a planetoid at his disposal. The Spectre takes flight before looking back at Cassie and tells her to keep them at bay until he returns. Wonder Woman can't understand why he is leaving at this precise time when he takes off from Earth 2. Superman proceeds to move against Darkseid when he turns and grabs him. Brainiac also appears, helping John to overcome him, but it proves ineffective. Darkseid turns against Brainiac, now forcing the mother box through his skull, bringing him over to the equation's side. Immediately, he flies toward his own ship when Cyborg notices it. As Brainiac reaches his collection, the plan is revealed. The Anti-Life is forcing him to destroy every planet. Luckily, Victor appears moments later and hits him in the back with his cannon before looking down at him. "We know you name, and we know what you are. If you can hear me, Erebos, these cities are under my protection." But the being doesn't stop there, attacking Cyborg back with his technological tentacles, penetrating his armor. Then something unexpected happens. Victor smiles back at him, adding that he can feel him lurking through his firewalls. "But all I can say is that it is a very bad move, because now I know you can't control me. You can't infect me. But I can infect Brainiac. I can control him, take his technology and knowledge. So Brainiac is mine now. And with all that power and knowledge, Cyborg takes control of the ship and moves toward Earth 2. At the same time, Green Arrow gives the bad news to Lois, telling her that there are hundreds of enemies between them and the Arks, but even worse, even his bow and arrow have a limit. Immediately, Cyborg appears, bringing chaos toward his enemies, and as he chokes the undead, he proceeds to ask Lois for the last city of Krypton, Kandor. Meanwhile, Superman takes his leave, passing Dinah and Mary at full speed when Batgirl takes over, kicking Darkseid right in the head. What has happened is that John has seen something no one else could. Warworld has unleashed its full firepower toward the planet. He decides to intervene, taking the full blast of the planetoid directly before being overcome by it. Then something unexpected happens. As he falls back to Earth, thousands of Kryptonians appear, flying toward the battlefield. It seems Cyborg, with the power of Brainiac, has reverse-engineered the bottle in which the city of Kandor was trapped. Now, we see the Spectre flying at full speed toward the battlefield, where the Kryptonians are keeping the Thanagarians at bay. As he moves through space, carrying hundreds of containers, he proceeds to drop them everywhere, now available for everyone to use. Immediately, Batman is injected by Leslie Tompkins, returning to his former self before looking back at Alfred, unable to believe he chose salvation rather than destruction. As Wonder Woman moves to hug him, Damian holds his chest, mentioning that he appreciates the hug, but some pieces of his ribs are floating where they shouldn't. Elsewhere, Superman and Mary Marvel are holding Darkseid back, while Batgirl punches the shit out of him. Out of nowhere, Lobo appears, mentioning that he knows a technique, before Superman replies that he doesn't want any of his rudimentary plans. Rudimentary? I'm talking about advanced fragging surgery. Give me the cure. He looks down at Darkseid before shouting, "Hey, Oblivion, eat my cure," and in seconds, introduces the antidote with a hole punch. Darkseid retaliates, biting his whole hand when Lobo screams, looking at it and shouting, "My hand, you bastich! I use that hand for some of my favorite things." Suddenly, Darkseid's voice can be heard, asking what has happened when Alfred appears, telling him, "You were taken, we brought you back, and you have been used, new god." Immediately, he asks by whom, when the Spectre mentions Erebos' name. He can't believe he was turned into a pawn, when his face hardens with rage, muttering that his vengeance will be terrible. Back on Earth 2, Big Barda and Mr. Miracle are waiting for their son, Jacob, when he finally wakes up, asking what happened and who they are. Barda can't believe it's been so long that he forgot. When she gets closer and mentions her name, Jacob doesn't understand at first. She was supposed to be dead. She then gets closer, hugging him before saying that she was, but they came back for him and will never leave him again. At the same time, Kara is happy to see her parents well before asking how it is possible that they are alive. As they look to the side, they mention that this man called Victor saved them. They then proceed to present Superman as her cousin Kal-El, son of Lara and Jor-El, but as she gets closer, she can't believe how big Baby El has grown. Hours later, they proceed to mourn the dead, and those that were too many to say goodbye to, while also burying mortals and gods alike. Black Racer, who is observing from far behind, suddenly hears his name being called. As he looks up, he sees Batman standing there before adding, "I did not sense your approach, Damian Wayne. Few can surprise death." He looks back at him before asking what he wants. Damian proceeds to tell him that his father and brothers taught him to respect all life, but before he was Batman, before he was Robin, he was an assassin, so he was taught to look for weakness. "I've been thinking about taking this fight to the source. Erebos is a primordial deity, the personification of darkness. The only thing that can destroy darkness is light, and I have an idea. I want you to tell me if it will work, to confirm I can end this being." Minutes later, Damian visits Cyborg's new base of operations, when Victor tells him that he might find a way to restore every trapped city once the universe is safe for them. However, Batman has a better idea, mentioning that he has talked to Death and ran something by him, something that can take them to the source. Having made their plans, they call out for a meeting, where Victor says that he believes they can take the fight directly to the source. But there's a problem. Erebos exists in limbo outside of our universe. We need to travel through a doom tube to reach him. As Dinah mentions that for that to work there will have to be death, Victor proceeds to tell them that this idea might be ready by tomorrow. Batman and himself are working on a weapon that can end Erebos, but they have to ensure he can't escape. Mary Marvel asks how they would be able to do that, when Damian adds that they need to create a crack big enough in the deity to fly Warworld through. Lobo immediately smiles, liking the idea the kid has proposed. Cyborg mentions that for all this to work they need 2 attacks on Erebos. One, specifically to hold his attention, when Darkseid's eyes sharpen as he says that he will face him. "Well, here's hoping Erebos' main weakness is arrogant shits who talk in the third person," says Guy Gardner, mocking him. Darkseid immediately uses his Omega Beam, hitting him in the chest, before Clark and John intervene. As Guy tries to compose himself, he says not to worry, this one is on him. him. Poking fun at Darkseid was a level of stupidity that even he was self-aware enough to recognize. Ares, who's been quiet all along, tells Darkseid that all this does not make sense. No one can hold Erebos' attention. Damien, who overhears him, smiles back at him, saying, "Not even the god of war?" However, he does not take the bait, mentioning that he is not facing a primordial deity. That would be suicide. Wonder Woman tells him that she doesn't understand how he can be such a coward. When he gets closer, he tells her to be careful. Cassie continues telling him that he was hiding all along before he denies it. Lois frowns at his lies, reminding him that while John was standing between this planet and annihilation, he was nowhere to be seen, to which Lobo smiles back at him, adding, "He's more like the creepy stalker of war than the god of it." That comment infuriates him when Black Racer appears, telling him that if he decides to face Erebos tomorrow, he will not be alone. He will be beside him, because death has always followed war. Hours later, Damien and Wonder Woman find themselves laughing at the way they played Ares, especially how Cassie played her part. However, the moment suddenly turns tense when she mentions that they need to be extra careful for tomorrow, since they came really close to losing him. Damien tries to tell her to stay behind, when she replies that there is an entire Green Lantern Corps and thousands of Kryptonians. But he mentions that he cannot trust the Guardians to do the right thing, and the Kryptonians are still inexperienced. He gets closer to her, trying to make her understand that they will need training, but more importantly, they will need a leader. Wonder Woman's face hardens after hearing that. She knows Damien is planning something. He tries to make excuses, saying that she is the greatest warrior and the only one he trusts to protect the universe, when she cuts him off. "Really? What's the weapon, Damien? This thing you and Cyborg have come up with? Honestly, I don't know what to think," she adds. "I want to trust you. You've come a long way, but there's still a little too much of your father in you." Hours later, John appears, looking for him, as the two mock each other regarding how terrible they look. When John proceeds to give him a present for his birthday, as Damien opens the present, Superman says that his cowl was smashed in the last battle, and tomorrow they are facing a primordial deity. He looks at the white cape, when John continues by saying that since they are fighting the personification of darkness, it may come up against the Light Knight. He then looks back at him almost like saying goodbye, when John's words keep bringing him hope. Damien puts a hand on his shoulder, almost like saying thank you for everything, before saying that he needed to look for Cassie and for him to be with his family. Early that morning, Cyborg is preparing everyone for what is to come, telling them that their hearts will be stopped for a minute, all connected to Warworld's full power with individual configurations. It will be just as effective on gods, Zarnians, and Kryptonians as on humans. In the time our hearts stop beating, Warworld will carry us through the Doom Tube and to Erebos. Lobo gets desperate before shouting that they get it, to just kill them already, and as John and Damien say their goodbyes, the electric shock begins. In seconds, the planetoid crosses to the darkest part imaginable, when Black Racer tells everyone that they have reached their objective. Now in front of them is the imposing figure of Erebos, calm, almost mesmerizing in the moment. Death tells Ares that it is time, before he mentions that they cannot win this. Black Racer acknowledges the sacrifice, because it is not their battle to win or lose, but for the heroes. As they approach, the almost algorithmic tone of the deity is heard. Ares and the Black Racer, such little things. When there is no one left to fight a war, when there is nothing left living to die, there will still be darkness. As he says those words, he is ready to attack. Ollie takes his shot with the bow of Apollo, hitting one of his tentacles. This gives the green light for the others to attack continuously in the same direction. Immediately, Lobo makes his move, thrusting his chained hook through the deity's skin, creating an opening for the rest to focus on. As they push it at full force, giving enough space for Warworld to enter, Cyborg mentions that the first part is ready before forgetting what comes next. He tries to look for the memory when he looks back at Damien sideways. Our whole conversation is missing. "Damien, what have you done?" "I am sorry. Bruce was a paranoid man, and you were bonded to Apokoliptian technology. He didn't just hide a tracker in you. He hacked your entire system years ago, and he left control with me. I had a theory. The anti-life virus leapt out of your mind. I needed the opposite, and I found it in you. I found the life equation. I extracted it, and I erased it all from your system. Now it only exists in me." Victor tries to convince him not to do this, when Damien tells him that he has the greatest technology of two worlds, to tell him if there's another way. However, Cyborg is unable to respond. Batman tells him that it needed to start with a life, and it couldn't be any other. Death itself confirmed it. As he tries to offer himself up, Damien, faintly smiling, replies that it already started. The moment they crossed into Erebos, a chain reaction began, with the heart of the anti-life and life equation colliding. hiding. He then proceeds to ask Cyborg how long they have, when Victor says 3 minutes, but also lets Damian know that he is not leaving. "You don't get a choice," replies Batman. "I've already programmed your flight path." Victor shouts for him before he says his goodbyes, and as the trajectory reaches the rest of the team, they ask what happened. Cyborg tells them that Batman is not coming, and Superman hears it. At the same time, Darkseid asks if the weapon fails, and Victor replies, "There's no weapon. It was always him. Damian took the life equation from my mind. He activated it in there. It's like when matter and antimatter collide. Nothing can survive what's coming. A universe is about to be born in Damian and Erebos, expanding out at the speed of light." John communicates immediately to him, shouting that he is not leaving him, when Damian replies that everything is okay. He's already gone. Darkseid says that he is impressed by his actions, when Ollie shouts that he doesn't need any validation from him. Suddenly, Damian says something that breaks Green Arrow. He reminds him of something he said long ago, when the infections first started, just seconds before Bruce's death. "Batman isn't going to be taken out by a virus. You're not going to get sick and fade away. You're going to sacrifice yourself for the galaxy, outwitting an evil as old as the stars or something." After those words returned to Ollie's head, he felt like it was yesterday, comprehending what the kid is planning to do. At the same time, Erebos feels it, the light building up inside him, asking furiously at Ares before crushing him. Darkseid lets them know that the old god has perished before Cyborg opens the boom tube for everyone to leave. Now, for the first time, the god reaches out to Batman, trying to convince him that he will die too, willing to bargain. As Damian touches the bat symbol, he reminds the deity that he took his father and brothers, while also hurting his friends. He has taken so much from him, from this universe, that there's nothing he can bargain with. There will just be his end. Superman is trying to convince John that it's time to go, but he doesn't want to let his friend die alone. Alfred appears before them and tells Clark that it's okay. He can take him there, promising to extract him before the end. Seconds later, Damian's eyes widen as he sees two of the most important people still in front of him. When Alfred takes his cloak off, mentioning that there's nowhere else he would gladly be at this moment, he lowers his sight before saying he can't be saved, when John sits beside him, knowing well what's happening. Still, he didn't want him to feel alone. Damian looks back at him, trying to make him understand that if he had said something, he would never have agreed. "No, I wouldn't," replies Superman, tears falling down his face, before smiling back, reminded him that he was a great Batman. And as those words are spoken, Damian smiles with content before his destiny is fulfilled. In seconds, the light expands at full force, destroying the primordial deity from within. Back on Earth, as the portal opens, the eyes of those who understand what happened are filled with tears, unable to believe he's gone. From the distance, Alfred observes them, knowing well that his last son saved all life. And while he is gone, sometimes he likes to visit the cosmos Damian made to glide past its new suns. As he observes the cooling planets that have formed, he says to himself, "I had no idea how much a parent could sacrifice for a child. Not until I had my own did I understand what I would give up for them, what I would do if any harm came to them, how deeply I could miss them, my bats, my sons, my whole universe."